Our beloved 8% Hard AF Seltzer is now live in over 2,500 locations across the United States. We're now available in Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, North Carolina, Ohio, and Texas. Go to hardafseltzer.com today, click on the store locator, enter your city or zip, and find the nearest location closest to you.
Welcome to Drinking Bros, presented by GhostBed.com.
Yeah, welcome to Drinkin' Bros, kids. Late night edition over here at the old Tetherball Academy Media Studios. Got a vice presidential debate tonight. D'Anthony on the heels of potentially World War III. How's Iran doing over there? They good or no? They seemed angry today.
Yeah, they had to do something. Isn't it weird? So think about this for a moment. Nasrallah gets killed, and they launch 200 rockets into Tel Aviv. Mm-hmm. And the only person that died from any of that was one poor Jordanian guy who got hit by an empty shell after he got shot down by the Iron Dome. Which
is that what it was?
Yeah.
Because as I was watching it today, Twitter will give you different stories. So it was trending throughout most of the day that the Iron Dome was down and it wasn't working. Is that not true?
It didn't catch everything that came through. I don't know. There was who knows what went on there. But it's odd that they fired that many. Oh boy, that's gone. The Braves are going to lose. So it's odd that they fired that many and nobody. How is that possible? Tel Aviv is a fucking city.
It's huge.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And nobody died from any of those strikes. Now, they said they were targeting air bases of Israel, I believe. It kind of reminds you when Soleimani died.
Yeah.
Right? And then they fired a bunch of shit at U.S. bases but didn't actually hurt anybody.
But here's the thing. With Israel, they fight back. Do they not strike Iran here?
I think Iran did the same thing they did in 2021, which is call Israel just like they called President Trump in 2021. I talked to a guy this weekend who was in the room when that call happened. And they told him straight up, hey, we got to retaliate. So here's where we're going to fire them. Make sure nobody's there. That's what it seems like to me. There's no way you can fire 20 goddamn ballistic missiles at a city and not kill anybody.
Yeah, look, in my opinion, if they didn't make that call, I think Israel now has open season to go after Iran the way they really want to. Right now, they've been strategic about it. They picked off leaders within inside their country and then Lebanon and everywhere else. Now you can go bombs away and say, fuck you. I don't give a shit. So if that call did not happen, I think Iran can do whatever they want. Now, the scary part for me is I don't want to see either of these motherfuckers in the White House coming up if we do end up going to war with Israel, if this happens. Because Kamala and fucking Walz, which we'll see tonight, aren't the ones that I want in there if a fucking war breaks out right now.
No, I mean, look, the debate will be very interesting because Walz is a fucking retard. I'm not even thinking about him that much, but Vance has got to kind of walk a tightrope here because AIPAC is going to want him to say one thing, and that entire organization should be dissolved, first of all. And everybody involved in it should be arrested for foreign influence, for not registering as a foreign agent, right? Because that's what they are. Israel's not America.
So are you saying Vance has to support Israel tonight?
And the other side of it is the anti-war right. All of the libertarian people that are voting for Trump-Vance, or at least saying they're going to, don't want to be involved in any of this bullshit, right? So he can't just be like, he can't do what most of Republicans are doing right now. Pray for Israel, support Israel, blah, 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 right? It's got to be a nuanced response to that situation.
And one would imagine it will come up tonight, right? It's unavoidable.
Yeah. I mean, here's the issue. The AIPAC people are what they are, and I don't know if he's going to buck them or not, frankly. I don't know what he's going to say about that, about Israel. I mean, the smart thing would be like, hey, we shouldn't be spending any money. Now, the U.S. shot down 7 rockets, or missiles, rather, that came out of Iran. That costs U.S. taxpayers about $100 million.
Oh, great.
Today.
Great.
We also have the DRF-1, Division Ready Force 1 of the 82nd Airborne, is on standby orders right now to go to the Middle East. That's also not great. Now, the other side is the anti-war right, who, if you go on Twitter today, you'll see post after post, Iran is not our enemy. Iran is not a threat to the United States. Iran's not our enemy, blah, blah, blah. That's fucking stupid. The people saying that are not smart people.
I agree.
Opinion. Well, they're smart people. I'll take that back. Smart people are saying dumb shit right now.
Iran is our enemy.
Iran's 100% our enemy, yes. And they're not just our enemy. They're America's enemy. They are all of Europe's enemy as well. Forget about Israel. I don't give a. This has nothing to do with Israel, as a matter of fact. It has to do with China, India, Europe, and the United States. Because Iran is using Chinese funding to pay Houthi rebels to attack U.S. shipping vessels, and there is a measurable effect from this that is affecting our economy right now, and one of the most tenuous economies we've ever had in the history of this country. In 2019, insurance companies like Lloyd's of London were insuring $150 million worth of cargo on the Suez Canal every single day. As of this month, they're insuring about $50 million a day. They've effectively, this little shithole Iran that's completely a non-player on the international stage in most ways now, right? Or they were during the Trump administration, have cut global trade of goods by 2/3 in their region. That cannot be tolerated. I'm anti-war more than any of the people running their fucking mouths on Twitter, because none of them have ever been to war before, and I have. It's my friends that died over there, not yours. So I don't want to hear your fucking bullshit about how fucking morally anti-war you are, you little bitch. This cannot be tolerated. Thomas Jefferson was upset, rightly so, that pirates were attacking U.S. shipping vessels, so we created the United States Navy. It is the only branch of the military even authorized by the Constitution, and it is authorized to do exactly this, to combat or to protect, rather, our shipping and transportation lanes globally. That's the purpose of the U.S. Navy, and it has been the primary resource to do that since 1947 for the entire world.
I was going to bring up Jefferson specifically. Libertarian hero Jefferson was like, we got to go.
He's the one that did this. It is literally, I don't think we should have a standing army. I think we should have a Navy and a Marine Corps that has all of our special operators in the Marine Corps. That's what I think. I don't think we should have an Army or an Air Force. Right? I think the Navy should be the only thing, and the Navy we can be the Air Force as well. Like, the largest Air Force in the world is the Air Force. Second largest Air Force is the Navy.
Yeah, and so for a lot of the Twitter warriors out here, I'm going to ask you, because you were actually in the military and you know this, there's been a lot of suggestions throughout the day that Israel, in response, should bomb all their oil refineries and possibly their nuclear power plants and get rid of their capabilities to have nuclear weapons potentially in the future.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not. Because all you do is create Iraq 2.0 when you do that. You destabilize a country that has a lot of fucking crazy rich people in it. Fuck that. That's dumb. It doesn't make any fucking sense to do that. It's the same thing we did in Afghanistan, by the way. Now, they're crazy poor people, but they're still crazy. That's not how you handle this. Trump did a very good job at this. He did a very good job at mitigating Iran and their influence just by not giving them billions of dollars, like Obama did and like fucking Harris and Biden have done, which is that should be the easiest part, is to not do that. They were, I believe Trump likes to say, Trumps, man. I think Trump likes to say they were poor and weak when he was in office, and that's absolutely what we need to do. I'm not saying that we need to go to war with Iran. I don't think we do at all. I don't think it's even not forget about whether it's moral or just or not. It's not even necessary. Trump has already done this just a couple of years ago after Obama fucked it up, just like Biden and Harris had fucked it up, right? And he came in and did the right thing a few times and completely mitigated their influence in the region. We can do that again. You just got to fucking elect them. That's it. So, but to be clear, this idea that Iran is not our enemy is demonstrably untrue. It's a very silly and dangerous thing to believe.
Now, here's what I can't understand, because when Kamala Harris was asked about this, if Iran was to do something in retaliation here, she gave a one-word response, and she said, don't.
Yeah.
Now, it didn't appear to work today.
Quit it.
And I'm shocked by that. She said, don't.
Do you remember Michael, whatever his name is, from Mad TV, the Stewart character?
Mm-hmm. Big fan. Stop.
It's like, yeah, that's not good foreign policy, bud.
No, it's not at all. And again, we're going to go picture in picture tonight with you guys throughout the entirety of this with polite commentary. Kidding.
No,
Probably won't be, but
this is by the way, before we get into the actual debate, this is part of what's going on right now. The other part is that these longshoremen people have gone on strike, and we should absolutely crush this union. Unions are poison in the first place, but this one in particular, we have to crush this guy. This guy was on trial a couple years ago for racketeering because he's hooked up with the Genovese mob, the Genovese family in New York. And the case eventually got thrown out because they found the key witness in a fucking trunk decomposing.
wow,
right?
That's going to happen.
He made $900,000 last year as the fucking head of a union.
Yeah.
$900,000 he made. The average port worker in America makes $147,000 a year and $35,000 in annual medical benefits. They are asking for no automation, and a 70% raise. Fuck you. Fire all of these people, replace them with robots right now. Fuck you. And some people have come at me today about like, but my union does this or my union does that. It's like, okay, cool. You're sacrificing the security and economy of this country for your own personal gain then. Congratulations, you're an asshole. Like, sorry, good that it's working out for you, but it's fucking the country up. Fuck this guy. Bust this union. Kill them. Not kill them, but like kill this union entirely.
Yeah, I mean, look, we saw this in Hollywood with a very similar thing with AI instead of automation in this case, and it didn't work out great at the end of it. Even though you kind of got what you want, it dragged on forever, lost billions and billions of dollars. A lot of people lost their jobs and livelihoods. This one is a whole different ballgame because, shit, everything we buy gets shipped in from somewhere, and you're going to need these ports and longshoremen all the way up and down the coast, or God knows how long the wait time is going to be for Christmas things.
Well,
everything.
Bob has looked into this already. It looks like most of the big, most of the big companies have already ordered a lot for this season. So it doesn't look like the holiday season will be affected.
In anticipation of this strike?
Yes.
Okay, good.
And also they were saying, just from the Wall Street Journal shit that I read, they kind of had learned a lot of lessons from COVID and probably that weird Suez Canal traffic jam as well.
Yeah.
So knowing this was on the horizon too, they're stocked up for the holiday season. It would really start hitting in the new year.
Okay. And then are we ready to rock there? How close are they for the debates?
Looks like the little clock they have is gone. So
yeah, they're coming on now. Here we go, kids. Walz versus Vance. Let's go picture in picture and turn this up.
Pogue v. Pogue.
CBS is the one that's hosting this tonight. Nora O'Donnell.
Margaret Brennan.
And then Margaret Brennan.
Have a thoughtful and civil debate, these are the rules
That's
that
wishful
both
thinking,
campaigns
Margaret.
have agreed to. Questions will be directed at one candidate who will have 2 minutes to respond. The other candidate will be allowed 2 minutes for rebuttal.
And then at the
each
end, they're
candidate
gonna
will get
fucking
another
make a
minute to
little
make further
baby.
points, with an additional 1
Who do you
minute
think's the top
each
or the
at
bottom?
discretion of the
Because
moderator.
Walz is the bottom.
Tim Walz is
Primary
obviously a
role of the
gaylord, but
moderators
Vance
is to
wears
facilitate
mascara,
the
so
debate,
who's
We
gay?
giving
don't
the
know. He
candidates
could have the
enforce
David
the
Carr
rules
disease,
and
where it
provide
just
the
looks like he's got
candidates with the
mascara
opportunity
on.
to fact-check claims
And I don't
made
want to
by
rule
each
that
other.
out.
Oh, and CBS is, by the way,
Right
CBS
to
has said
mute
they're
the
not going to
candidates'
fact check anybody.
microphones to
They said
maintain
they put out a statement said
We
it's
have
the
not
candidate's
shared
job to fact
questions or
check each other.
topics
Oh,
with the
great.
campaigns.
Which is
The
it should be.
stage is set. Governor,
be.
Senator, thank you for joining us.
Here we
Let's
go.
get started. Tonight, our country is facing several unfolding crises. The Middle East is on the brink of war. Americans are suffering from the catastrophic impact of Hurricane Helene. And now a labor strike as 25,000 dock workers from Maine to Texas are picketing. We're going to begin tonight with the Middle East. Margaret. Thank you, Nora. Earlier today, Iran launched its largest attack yet on Israel, but that attack failed, thanks to joint U.S. and Israeli defensive action. President Biden has deployed more than 40,000 U.S. military personnel and assets to that region over the past year to try to prevent a regional war. Iran is weakened, but the U.S. still considers it the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, and it has drastically reduced the time it would take to develop a nuclear weapon. It is down now to 1 or 2 weeks' time.
Juan?
Get the fuck out of
Is
here.
it Juan?
If you are the final
That's
voice
a
in
bullshit
situation
statement, by the way.
That's not true.
They said 3
support
weeks like
or
6 months
oppose
ago.
A
Fuck
preemptive
off.
strike by Israel
on Iran. You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, and thank you for those joining at home tonight. Let's keep in mind where this started. October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. Iran,
it's all Muslims in Minnesota.
Why does he look like he's reading off a prompter right now?
Getting its hostages back,
He's nervous.
and ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But the expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States to have the steady leadership there. You saw it experienced today, where along with our Israeli partners and our coalition, able to stop the incoming attack. But what's fundamental here is that steady leadership is going to matter. It's clear, and the world saw it on that debate stage a few weeks ago, a nearly 80-year-old Donald Trump talking about crowd sizes is not what we need in this moment.
What?
But it's not just that. It's those that were closest to Donald Trump that understand how dangerous he is when the world is this dangerous. His chief of staff, John Kelly, said that he was the most flawed human being he'd ever met. And both of his secretaries of defense and his national security advisors said he should be nowhere near the White House. Now, the person
And
closest
53
to them,
former intelligence officials said
Donald
that
Trump
the Hunter Biden laptop
said
is
he's
Russian
unfit for the
disinformation.
highest office. That was Senator Vance. What we've seen out of Vice President Harris is we've seen steady leadership. We've seen a calmness that is able to draw on the coalitions to bring them together. Understanding that our allies matter. When our allies see Donald Trump turn towards Vladimir Putin, turn towards North Korea, when we start to see that type of fickleness around holding the coalitions together, we will stay committed. And as the Vice President said today we will protect our forces and our allied forces, and there will be consequences.
Governor, your time is up. Senator Vance, the same question. Would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran?
Yeah, he didn't answer the question, I guess.
So, Margaret, I want to answer the question. First of all, thanks, Governor. Thanks to CBS for hosting the debate. And thanks, most importantly, to the American people who are watching this evening and caring enough about this country to pay attention to this vice presidential debate. I want to answer the question, but I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit, because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are.
Those eyes are doing all the work,
I was
JD.
raised in a working-class family. My mother required food assistance for periods of her life.
I think he's born with it.
No, it's
required
Maybelline.
Social
You think it's
Security
Maybelline?
help to raise me, and she raised me in part because my own mother struggled with addiction for a big chunk of my early life. I went to college on the GI Bill after I enlisted in the Marine Corps and served in Iraq. And so I stand here asking to be your vice president with extraordinary gratitude for this country, for the American dream that made it possible for me to live my dreams. And most importantly, I know that a lot of you are worried about the chaos in the world and the feeling that the American dream is unattainable. I want to try to convince you tonight over the next 90 minutes that if we get better leadership in the White House, if we get Donald Trump back in the White House, the American dream is going to be attainable once again. Now, to answer this particular question, we have to remember that as much as Governor Walz just accused Donald Trump of being an agent of chaos,
Hang on.
Donald Trump actually delivered stability in the world, and he did it by establishing effective deterrence. People were afraid of stepping out of line. Iran, which launched this attack, has received over $100 billion in unfrozen assets thanks to the Kamala Harris administration. What do they use that money for? They use it to buy weapons that they're now launching against our allies, and God forbid, potentially launching against the United States as well. Donald Trump recognized that for people to fear the United States, you needed peace through strength. They needed to recognize that if they got out of line, the United States global leadership would put stability and peace back in the world. Now, you asked about a preemptive strike, Margaret, and I want to answer the question. Look, it is up to Israel what they think they need to do to keep their country safe, and we should support our allies wherever they are when they're fighting the bad guys. I think that's the right approach to take with the Israel question.
Thank you, Senator. Governor Walz, do you care to respond to any of the allegations?
Well, look, Donald Trump was in office. We'll sometimes hear a revisionist history, but when Donald Trump was in office, it was Donald Trump who we had a coalition of nations that had boxed Iran's nuclear program in, the inability to advance it. Donald Trump pulled that program and put nothing else in its place. So Iran is closer to a nuclear weapon than they were before because of Donald Trump's fickle leadership. And when Iran shot down an American aircraft in international airspace, Donald Trump tweeted,
No.
because that's the standard diplomacy of Donald Trump.
We definitely did stuff.
And when Iranian missiles did fall near U.S. troops and they received traumatic brain injuries, Donald Trump wrote it off as headaches. Look, our allies.
Here's what happened there. I said it before on the
that
show,
Donald
but for those of you who are
Trump is
listening for
fickle.
the first
He will
time,
go to
Iran
whoever
called
has the
Trump
most
and said they
flattery
were
or
firing
where it
those
makes
weapons,
sense to
gave them the
him.
grid coordinates where they were
Steady
going to land, and
leadership
that's
like
why
you
not
witnessed
one
today,
U.S.
like you
soldier
witnessed
was
in
hit.
April. Both
Not
Iranian
one.
attacks were repelled. Our coalition is strong, and we need the steady leadership that Kamala Harris is providing.
Senator Vance, the U.S. did have a diplomatic deal with Iran to temporarily pause parts of its nuclear program, and President Trump did exit that deal. He recently said, just 5 days ago, the U.S. must now make a diplomatic deal with Iran because the consequences are impossible. Did he make a mistake? You have 1 minute.
Well, first of all, Margaret, diplomacy is not a dirty word, but I think that's something that Governor Walz just said is quite extraordinary. You yourself just said Iran is as close to a nuclear weapon today as they have ever been. And Governor Walz, you blame Donald Trump. Who has been the vice president for the last 3.5 years? And the answer is your running mate, not mine. Donald Trump consistently made the world more secure. Now, we talk about what the sequence of events that led us to where we are right now, and you can't ignore October the 7th, which I appreciate Governor Walz bringing up. But when did Iran and Hamas and their proxies attack Israel? It was during the administration of Kamala Harris. So Governor Walz can criticize Donald Trump's tweets, but effective, smart diplomacy
Vance
and
wins
peace
this
through
debate,
strength
even if
is
the
how
facts
you bring
aren't on his
stability
side.
back
He's
to
a lawyer.
very
He's quite a
broken
bit
world.
better at
Donald
this.
Trump has already done it once before. Ask yourself at home, when was the last time? I'm 40
Walz
years
looks
old. When was
like
the last
he just
time
found out
that an American
he's being
president
arrested.
didn't have a major
Look at his
conflict
face.
break out? The only answer is during the 4 years
Holy
that Donald Trump was
shit.
president.
Gentlemen, we have a lot to get to.
There's going to be
Nora?
so many
Margaret,
memes.
thank you.
Oh, tons.
Hey,
Let's turn now to
Gary, where's
Hurricane
Gary?
Helene. The
He can't hear
storm
you.
could become one of the
I want Gary to
deadliest
start
on
making
record.
memes.
More than 160 people are dead and hundreds more are missing. Scientists say climate change makes these hurricanes
Oh, God
larger,
damn it, dude.
stronger, and more deadly because of the historic
Nicola
rainfall.
Liller.
Senator Vance, according to CBS News polling,
Climate
7 in
change.
10 Americans and more than 60% of Republicans under the age of 45 favor the U.S. taking steps to try and reduce climate change. Senator, what responsibility would the Trump administration have to try and reduce the impact of climate change? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Sure. So first of all, let's start with the hurricane because it's an unbelievable, unspeakable human tragedy. I just saw today actually a photograph of 2 grandparents on a roof with a 6-year-old child, and it was the last photograph ever taken of them because the roof collapsed and those innocent people lost their lives. And I'm sure Governor Walz joins me in saying our hearts go out to those innocent people, our prayers go out to them, and we want as robust and aggressive as a federal response as we can get to save as many lives as possible, and then, of course, afterwards, to help the people in those communities rebuild. I mean, these are communities that I love. Some of them I know very personally in Appalachia, all across the Southeast. They need their government to do their job, and I commit that when Donald Trump is president again, the government will put the citizens of this country first when they suffer from a disaster. Now, Nora, you asked about climate change. I think this is a very important issue. Look, a lot of people are justifiably worried about all these crazy weather patterns. I think it's important for us, first of all, to say Donald Trump and I support clean air, clean water. We want the environment to be cleaner and safer. But one of the things that I've noticed some of our Democratic friends talking a lot about is a concern about carbon emissions, this idea that carbon emissions drives all of the climate change. Well, let's just say that's true, just for the sake of argument, so we're not arguing about weird science. Let's just say that's true. Well, if you believe that, what would you want to do? The answer is that you'd want to reshore as much American manufacturing as possible, and you'd want to produce as much energy as possible in the United States of America because we're the cleanest economy in the entire world. What have Kamala Harris's policies actually led to? More energy production in China, more manufacturing overseas, more doing business in some of the dirtiest parts of the entire world. And when I say that, I mean the amount of carbon emissions they're doing per unit of economic output. So if we actually care about getting cleaner air and cleaner water, the best thing to do is to double down and invest in American workers and the American people. And unfortunately, Kamala Harris has done exactly the opposite.
So he's done so
Governor
many
Walz, you
interviews
have
with
2 minutes to
Margaret. He's
respond.
used to her. I'm
Close
telling
to
you, I've watched him
agreement,
every
because all
weekend
those
for
things
5
are
weekends on
happening.
our
Look,
show.
First of all, it is a horrific tragedy with this hurricane, and my heart
I'm
goes
getting
out
like
to the folks
Admiral
that are down there,
Stockdale vibes
in contact with
from
the
Walz
governors.
right
I
now.
serve
Rapey
as-
ones.
Well, That's just
co-chair
you
of the
wanting to
Council
raise
of Governors. As we
I
work
want him
together
to
on these
get on top of me.
And
too.
I understand it. He's got a
no
slick
partisanship.
forehead.
They work together to solve
And that's
the
something that a
governors
lot
and
of
the
us are
emergency
attracted to.
responders on the ground. Those happen on the front
Oil
end.
that forehead up.
The federal government
Slide
comes
right on
in,
in
make
there.
sure they're there to that we recover. But we're still in that phase where we need to make sure that they're staying there, staying focused.
JD
now,
by
look, coming
70.
back to the climate change issue, there's no doubt this thing roared onto the scene faster and stronger than anything we've seen. Senator Vance has said that there's a climate problem in the past. Donald Trump called it a hoax, and then joked that these things would make more beachfront property to be able to invest in. What we've seen out of the Harris administration now, the Biden-Harris administration, is we've seen this investment. We've seen massive investments, the biggest in global history that we've seen in the Inflation Reduction Act, has created jobs all across the country. 2,000 in Jeffersonville, Ohio, taking the EV technology that we invented and making it here. 200,000 jobs across the country. The largest solar manufacturing plant in North America sits in Minnesota. But my farmers know climate change is real. They've seen 500-year droughts,
My farmers.
500-year floods back to back. But what they're doing is adapting, and this has allowed them to tell me, look, I harvest corn, I harvest soybean, and I harvest wind. We are producing more natural gas and more oil at any time than we ever have. We're also producing more clean energy. So
That's not true.
The solution for us is
We're actually
continue
burning
to
more
move
coal
forward
now than we
that
were before.
Climate change is real. Reducing our impact is absolutely critical, but this is not a false choice. You can do that at the same time you're creating the jobs that we're seeing all across the country. That's exactly what this administration has done. We are seeing us becoming an energy superpower for the future, not just the current. And that's what absolutely makes sense. And then we start thinking about how do we mitigate these disasters.
Thank you. Senator, I want to give you an opportunity to respond there. The governor mentioned that President Trump has called climate change a hoax. Do you agree?
Well, look, what the president has said is that if the Democrats, in particular Kamala Harris and her leadership, if they really believe that climate change is serious, what they would be doing is more manufacturing and more energy production in the United States of America, and that's not what they're doing. So clearly, Kamala Harris herself doesn't believe her own rhetoric on this. If she did, she would actually agree with Donald Trump's energy policies. Now, something that Governor Walz said I think is important to touch upon, because when we talk about clean energy, I think that's a slogan that often the Democrats will use here. And I'm talking, of course, about the Democratic leadership. And the real issue is that if you're spending hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars of American taxpayer money on solar panels that are made in China, number one, you're going to make the economy dirtier. We should be making more of those solar panels here in the United States of America. Some of them are, Tim, but a lot of them are being made overseas in China, especially the components that go into those solar panels. So if you really want to make the environment cleaner, you've got to invest in more energy production. We haven't built a nuclear facility, I think, one in the past 40 years.
Senator.
Natural gas, we got to invest more in it. Kamala Harris has done the opposite. That's raised energy prices and also meant that we're doing
Senator,
worse by the climate.
your time is up. Governor, would you like to respond?
Well, look, we're producing more natural gas than we ever have. There's no moratorium on that. We're producing more oil, but the folks know.
Is that true?
Like I said
know.
again,
Definitely not
these
on
are
oil.
not
No, it is.
These
We
not
are
folks that
currently,
Green
like
New
when
Deal
the
folks. These are
administration
farmers
started, no,
that have
but
been drought
it is
one
currently at
year,
like peak levels.
Massive flooding.
Oh, well,
next
now,
year.
yeah.
They understand that
In
it
the- over
makes
the last
sense.
year and a
Look,
half,
our
2 years, I think.
Number one export cannot be topsoil from erosion from these massive storms. We saw it in Minnesota this summer. And thinking about how do we respond to that, we're thinking ahead on this. And what Kamala Harris has been able to do in Minnesota, we're starting to weatherproof some of these things. The infrastructure law that was passed allows us to think about mitigation in the future. How do we make sure that we're protecting by burying our power lines? How do we make sure that we're protecting lakefronts and things that we're seeing more and more of? But to call it a hoax and to take the oil company executives to Mar-a-Lago, say, give me money for my campaign, and I'll let you do whatever you want. We can be smarter about that, and an all-above energy policy is exactly what she's doing, creating those jobs right here.
Governor, your time is up. The overwhelming consensus among scientists is that the
Okay,
Earth's climate
so
is
the
warming at an unprecedented
Production
rate.
of natural gas
Margaret?
under Trump
Thank
went
you,
up
Nora. We're gonna turn now
24.5%
to immigration.
during his
The
4
crisis
years,
at
and
the
during this
US-Mexico
administration has gone up
border consistently
12.5%.
ranks
Okay,
as
so
one
that's
of
not
the
true.
top
About half.
issues
Well, no, I mean, it's
for
true that the
American
total
voters.
amount is
Senator
good,
Vance,
or it's higher,
your
but it's not
campaign is pledging to
commensurate
carry
with
out
the
the
Trump,
largest mass
administration, not even
deportation
close.
plan in American history and to use the U.S. military to do so. Could you be more specific about exactly how this will work? For example, would you deport parents who have entered the U.S. illegally and separate them from any of their children who were born on U.S. soil? You have 2 minutes.
So first of all, Margaret, before we talk about deportations, we have to stop the bleeding. We have a historic immigration crisis because Kamala Harris started and said that she wanted to undo all of Donald Trump's border policies. 94 executive orders suspending deportations, decriminalizing illegal aliens, massively increasing the asylum fraud that exists in our system. That has opened the floodgates. And what it's meant is that a lot of fentanyl is coming into our country. I had a mother who struggled with opioid addiction and has gotten clean. I don't want people who are struggling with addiction to be deprived of their second chance because Kamala Harris let in fentanyl into our communities at record levels. So you've got to stop the bleeding. You've got to re-implement Donald Trump's border policies, build the wall, re-implement deportations. And that gets me to your point, Margaret, about what do we actually do? So we've got 25 million illegal aliens who are here in the country. What do we do with them? I think the first thing that we do is we start with the criminal migrants. About 1 million of those people have committed some form of crime in addition to crossing the border illegally. I think you start with deportations
By the way,
on
this
those
is a talking
folks.
point I
And
gave
then
to
I
the
think you make it
campaign
harder for
this
illegal
weekend.
aliens to undercut the
Start with
wages
1
of
million
American
people.
workers.
That's
a lot
it.
of people
We're not
will
gonna
go
deport
home
20
if they
million
can't
people.
work for less than
And we
minimum wage
shouldn't,
in our own country.
frankly.
And by the way, that'll be really good for our workers who just want to earn a fair wage for doing a good day's work. And the final point, Margaret,
So you think we
asked
should
about
leave
family
19 million
separation.
illegal
Right
immigrants in the
now,
country?
What'll happen
Margaret,
is
we have
the same thing that happened in 2017.
320,000
So
children that the Department of
once
Homeland
Trump
Security
got into
has
office
effectively
and
lost.
started deporting
Some of them
people,
have been
people started to
sex trafficked, some
self-select
of them
because if you
hopefully
get
are
caught
homes with
and
their
deported
families.
once, you get a
Some of them have
5-year
been
ban
used
on
as
reentry.
drug
If you
trafficking
get caught a
mules.
second time, it's a
The real
permanent ban on
family
reentry.
separation policy in this country is
And it was very
unfortunately
effective.
Kamala
So you
Harris's
deport
wide open
1
southern
million of
border.
the worst,
And I'd ask
another
my fellow
5 million
Americans
will
to
probably
remember,
go,
when
and let's
she
make the
came
rest
into office,
put
she
them on the
said she
pathway to
was going to
citizenship.
do
Why
this.
not?
Real
Like,
leadership
those are the
would be
people that are
saying, you know
staying
what,
to work
I screwed
jobs.
up. We're going to go back to
And
Donald
the
Trump's
shitty
border
ones you want
policies,
out of
and I
it.
wish
And to
she
be
would do
frank,
that. It would
the
be good
white
for all of us.
dummies in the Pacific Northwest
Governor,
aren't going to work.
Nope.
do you
So
care to respond
let's
to
let
any of
them
those
die of
specific
fentanyl
allegations,
overdoses or whatever they're going to
including
do,
that
and then
the
we'll
vice
have fucking
president
Mexicans
is, quote, letting in
become
fentanyl
U.S. citizens the same way
and
Italians
using
and
kids
Irish
as
and
drug
everybody else have
mules,
over the
among
years.
other things
Yeah,
regarding
well,
children.
the drug mule is not true, but I will say about this, about the fentanyl, because this is a crisis of this, the opioid crisis. And the good news on this is the last 12 months saw the largest decrease in opioid deaths in our nation's history.
Yeah, that's
30%
because it
decrease
peaked
in Ohio.
at
But there's still more work to do.
120,000
But let's
people.
go back to this
You
on
fucking
immigration.
cunt.
Kamala Harris was the Attorney General of the largest state and a border state in California. She's the only person in this race who prosecuted transnational gangs for human trafficking.
That's a
and
good
drug
talking point,
interventions.
Tim.
But look, we all want to solve this. Most of us want to
17,
solve
310,000
this,
border crossing
and that
attempts.
is the United States
2018,
Congress.
404.
That's the Border
2019 was
Patrol
high,
agents. That's the
860.
Chamber of Commerce. That's
2020,
most Americans out here.
405.
That's why we
2021,
had
1.6
the
million.
fairest and the
2022,
toughest
2.2
bill
million.
on
2023,
immigration
2.1
that this
million.
nation's seen. It was
Fuck
crafted
you.
by a conservative senator from Oklahoma, James Lankford. I know him. He's super conservative, but he's a man of principle, wants to get it done. Democrats and Republicans worked on this piece of legislation. The Border Patrol said, this is what we need in here. These are the experts. And the Chamber of Commerce and the Wall Street Journal said, pass this thing. Kamala Harris helped get
The
that.
Border Patrol did not
1,500
support that
new
bill.
border agents.
As a matter of fact, the Border
Detection
Patrol
for
agency
drugs.
or
DOJ
union
money
said
to speed
absolutely
up
not to that bill, and they
these,
endorsed Trump.
The
Just
adjudications
to be
on this,
clear.
just what America wants. But as soon as I was getting ready to pass and actually tackle this, Donald Trump said no, told them to vote against it because it gives him a campaign issue. It gives him to, what would Donald Trump talk about if we actually did some of these things? And they need to be done by the legislature. You can't just do this through the executive branch. So look, we have the options to do this. Donald Trump had 4 years. He had 4 years to do this. And he promised you, America, how easy it would be. I'll build you a big, beautiful wall, and Mexico will pay for it.
Congress
Less
shot it
than
down.
2% of that wall got built, and Mexico didn't pay a dime. But here we are again, 9 years after he came down that escalator, dehumanizing people and telling them what he was going to do. As far as the deportation plan, at one point, Senator Vance said it was so unworkable to be laughable. So that's where we're at. Pass the bill, she'll sign it.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, the question was, will you separate parents from their children, even if their kids are U.S. citizens? You have 1 minute.
Margaret, my point is that we already have massive child separations thanks to Kamala Harris's open border. And I didn't accuse Kamala Harris of inviting drug mules. I said that she enabled the Mexican drug cartels to operate freely in this country. And we know that they use children as drug mules. And it is a disgrace and it has to stop. Look, I think what Tim said just doesn't pass the smell test. For 3 years, Kamala Harris went out bragging that she was going to undo Donald Trump's border policy. She did exactly that. We had a record number of illegal crossings. We had a record number of fentanyl coming into our country. And now that she's running for president, or a few months before, she says that somehow she got religion and cared a lot about a piece of legislation. The only thing that she did when she became the vice president, when she became the appointed border czar, was to undo 94 Donald Trump executive actions that opened the border. This problem is leading to massive problems in the United States of America. Parents who can't afford health care, schools that are overwhelmed. It's got to stop, and it will when Donald Trump is president again.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, what about our CBS News polling, which does show that a majority of Americans, more than 50%, support mass deportations?
Look, we fix this issue with a bill that is necessary, but the issue on this is what happens when you don't want to solve it. You demonize it. And we saw this. And Senator Vance...
when you don't want to solve the problem by codifying into law 1.5 million illegals coming into the country every year, which, by the way, would be the most of any year in the history of this country that wasn't a Biden-Harris year.
The other thing in that bill was funding Ukraine and funding Israel. I don't want that either.
We could come together. Senator Langford did it. We could come together and solve this if we didn't let Donald Trump continue to make it an issue. And the
Donald Trump wasn't in office for the last 4 years. He has nothing to do with this.
State law enforcement to escort kindergartners to school. I believe Senator Vance wants to solve this, but by standing with Donald Trump and not working together to find a solution, it becomes a talking point. And when it becomes a talking point like this, we dehumanize and villainize other human beings.
There's also 320,000 children
Governor, your time is up.
missing,
Senator, I'll give you 1 minute. But
unaccounted for. 320,000 illegal immigrant children that have come across the border in the last 3.5 years that are missing.
They don't know where they're at.
Lawmaker, you know that Congress controls the purse strings and any funding. So you have said repeatedly that Donald Trump would, through executive action, solve this. Do you disagree that Congress controls the purse strings and would need to support many of the changes that you would actually want to implement? You have 1 minute.
Look, Margaret, first of all, the gross majority of what we need to do at the southern border is just empowering law enforcement to do their job. I've been to the southern border more than our border czar, Kamala Harris, has been. And it's actually heartbreaking because the Border Patrol agents, they just want to be empowered to do their job. Of course, additional resources would help, but most of this is about the president and the vice president empowering our law enforcement to say, if you try to come across the border illegally, you've got to stay in Mexico, you've got to go back through proper channels. Now, Governor Walz brought up the community of Springfield, and he's very worried about the things that I've said in Springfield. Look, in Springfield, Ohio, and in communities all across this country, you've got schools that are overwhelmed. You've got hospitals that are overwhelmed. You have got housing that is totally unaffordable because we brought in millions of illegal immigrants to compete with Americans for scarce homes. The people that I'm most worried about in Springfield, Ohio, are the American citizens who have had their lives destroyed by Kamala Harris's open border. It is a disgrace, Tim. And I actually think, I agree with you. I think you want to solve this problem, but I don't think that Kamala Harris does.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, you have 1 minute to respond.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, it is law enforcement that asked for the bill. They helped craft it. They're the ones that supported it.
No.
Nobody wanted that bill.
They know we need to
Absolutely.
do
It
this.
includes
Look,
funding
this
for
issue of
Ukraine
continuing to
and
bring this
Israel.
up,
This is
has nothing to do with the border.
with it, of blaming migrants for everything. On housing, we could talk a little bit about Wall Street speculators buying up housing and making them less affordable.
Or we could talk
But it
about
becomes
Barney
a
Frank,
blame.
who created
Look,
the
this
2007,
bill
2008
also
housing crisis.
gives the money
Your guy.
necessary to adjudicate. I agree. It should not take 7 years for an asylum claim to be done. This bill gets it done in 90 days. Then you start to make a difference in this.
This
and
bill
you start to
fast-tracks
adhere to what we
citizenship?
know,
Is that what you're saying?
American principles.
For people
I don't
who
talk about
we don't know
my
who they
faith a
are.
lot,
1.5
but
million.
Matthew 25:40
Sorry, but
talks
we're not
about
letting you import
to the least
citizens.
amongst us you do unto me. I think that's true of
Bob
most
actually had a good
Americans.
idea
They
earlier. We need
simply
more
want
coal right
order
now
to it.
because of
This bill
electric
does it.
everything.
It's funded. It's
And
supported by the people who do
you're
it.
an
and it
illegal
lets us
immigrant. You
keep
come
our
in, you work the
dignity
coal mines,
about how we
5
treat
years.
other people.
Yeah.
You're a citizen.
Thank you,
I
Governor.
said the
Just to
Longshore, too.
clarify,
Let them
Longshore,
unload the-
too, yeah.
Let them
Yeah.
unload the ships.
Ohio,
If our guys aren't going to fucking do it.
Kill that union,
Haitian
put them there
migrants
too. 5 years
who
of
have
service,
legal status.
you're good.
temporary protected status.
Margaret,
Nora?
but
Thank you.
Senator, we have so much to get to.
No, you don't, Margaret.
We're going to turn out of the economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
the rules were that you guys
economy-
weren't going to fact check. And since you're fact checking me, I think it's important
There
to
you
say
go.
what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That
Thank
is
you,
the
Senator.
facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by
Thank
our
you,
own
Senator, for
leadership.
describing the legal
And
process.
Kamala-
We
and
have
Kamala
so much
Harris
to get
opened up
to,
that
Senator.
pathway.
Those
We have
laws
so
have been on
much.
the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The
we
CBP
want to have.
There haven't
has
been a
not been on
phone
the
app
books.
since 1990 there, Tim.
No,
Little Timmy.
we didn't have a cell phone until the 2000s.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. We have so much we want to get to. Thank you
You
for
just said you
explaining
weren't
the
going to
legal
fact check
process.
everybody, and you fucking
Nora.
did.
Thank you, Margaret. The economy is a top concern for voters. Each of your campaigns has released an economic plan, so let's talk about the specifics. Governor Walz, Vice President Harris unveiled a plan that includes billions in tax credits for manufacturing, housing, and a renewed child tax credit. The Wharton School says your proposals will increase the
Why do we
nation's
keep bringing up the
deficit
Wharton
by
schools if that's the
$1.2
fucking end-all be-all here?
trillion?
I have no idea.
How would you pay for that without ballooning the deficit? Governor, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. And Kamala Harris and I do believe in the middle class because that's where we come from. We both grew up in that. We
Boy,
understand.
her mom
heard it a
and
million
dad
times.
were
Tonight,
fucking
you're
professors,
hearing a lot of
dude.
stuff
Heard
back
it a
and
million
forth. and
times.
It's
Come on
good.
now.
It's healthy. That's what this is supposed to happen. You should be listening. How's this going to impact me? The bold forward plan that Kamala Harris put out there is talking about this housing issue. The one thing is there's 3 million new houses proposed under this plan with down payment assistance on the front end to get you in a house. A house is much more than just an asset to be traded somewhere. It's foundational to where you're at. And then making sure that the things you buy every day, whether they be prescription drugs or other things, that there's fairness in that. Look, the $35 insulin is a good thing, but it costs $5 to make insulin. They were charging $800 before this law went into effect. As far as the housing goes, I've seen it in Minnesota. 12% more houses in Minneapolis, prices went down on rent 4%. It's working. And then making sure tax cuts go to the middle class. $6,000 child tax credit, we have one in Minnesota, reduces childhood poverty by 1/3. We save money in the long run, and we do the right thing.
6K isn't going to do shit.
Vance's answer is spend less money.
Tax credit
How are we
for
going to
small business,
afford not
increasing it to
taxing
$50,000.
moms more?
This is a philosophical
Spend less money,
difference.
cunt.
Donald Trump made a promise, and I'll give
Fuck
you
are you
this. He
talking
kept it.
about?
He took folks to Mar-a-Lago, said, you're rich as hell, I'm going to give you a tax cut. He gave the tax cuts that predominantly went to the top class. What happened there was an $8 trillion increase in the national debt, the largest ever. Now he's proposing a 20% consumption or sales tax on everything we bring in. Everyone agrees, including businesses, it would be destabilizing it,
Okay,
it
good.
would increase inflation and potentially lead
Good,
to
now
a
he's gonna light
recession.
this shit up.
Look, this is simple for you. Where are we going? Kamala Harris has said to do the things she wants to do. We'll just ask the wealthiest to pay their fair share. When you do that, our system works better.
If every billionaire in
More people are
America
participating
gave
in it, and
100%
folks have
of
the
their
things that
wealth
they need.
to the government,
Senator, I want to give you a moment
it
to
would run
respond
the
on that,
government
but
for 8
similarly,
months.
the Wharton
That's it.
School has
The
done
end.
an analysis of the
Another
Trump
Wharton School
plan
reference.
and says it would increase the nation's deficit by $5.8 trillion. My question is the same for you. How do you pay for all that without ballooning the deficit? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, you're going to hear a lot from Tim Walz this evening, and you just heard it in the answer, a lot of what Kamala Harris proposes to do. And some of it, I'll be honest with you, it even sounds pretty good. Here's what you won't hear, is that Kamala Harris has already done it. Because she's been the vice president for 3.5 years. She had the opportunity to enact all of these great policies, and what she's actually done instead is drive the cost of food higher by 25%, drive the cost of housing higher
56.
by about 60%,
56%.
open the American southern border, and make middle-class life unaffordable for a large number of Americans. If Kamala Harris has such great plans for how to address middle-class problems, then she ought to do them now, not when asking for a promotion, but in the job the American people gave her 3.5 years ago. And the fact that she isn't tells you a lot about how much you can trust her actual plans. Now, Donald Trump's economic plan is not just a plan, but it's also a record. A lot of those same economists attack Donald Trump's plans, and they have PhDs, but they don't have common sense and they don't have wisdom. Because Donald Trump's economic policies delivered the highest take-home pay in a generation in this country, 1.5% inflation, and to boot, peace and security all over the world. So when people say that Donald Trump's economic plan doesn't make sense, I say look at the record. He delivered rising take-home pay for American workers. Now, Tim admirably admits that they want to undo the Trump tax cuts. But if you look at what was so different about Donald Trump's tax cuts, even from previous Republican tax cut plans, is that a lot of those resources went to giving more take-home pay to middle-class and working-class Americans. It was passed in 2017, and you saw an American economic boom unlike we've seen in a generation in this country. That is a record that I'm proud to run on, and we're going to get back to that common sense wisdom so that you can afford to live the American dream again. I know a lot of you are struggling. I know a lot of you are worried about paying the bills. It's going to stop when Donald Trump brings back common sense to this country.
Rosie Cox in the chat says, my son sold his first animal at the fair this weekend and saw how much Uncle Sam took from it. Fast track to hate in the government. If you want to raise Republican kids, give them an allowance and take 40% right back.
Exactly.
And they will vote repube for the rest of their goddamn lives.
9 million jobs closed on that. That was day one. Whether it was the Infrastructure Act or other things we moved. Now, you made a question about experts, said this. I've made a note of this. Economists can't be trusted. Science can't be trusted. National security folks can't be trusted. Look, if you're going to be president, you don't have all the answers. Donald Trump believes he does. My pro tip of the day is this. If you need heart surgery, listen to the people at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, not
Why?
Trump.
The people that told me that fucking vaccines didn't cause myocarditis?
Teachers,
sorry,
nurses,
not listening to them.
whatever. How is it fair that you're paying your taxes every year and Donald Trump hasn't paid any federal tax in the last 15 years?
That's also not true. Vance is about to light him up on that one. You can see it in his eyes.
There's a way around it, and he's bragged about that. We're just asking for fairness in it, and that's all you want.
You have a minute.
Governor, you say trust the experts. But those same experts for 40 years said that if we shipped our manufacturing base off to China, we'd get cheaper goods. They lied about that. They said if we shipped our industrial base off to other countries, to Mexico and elsewhere, it would make the middle class stronger. They were wrong about that. They were wrong about the idea that if we made America less self-reliant, less productive in our own nation, that it would somehow make us better off, and they were wrong about it. And for the first time in a generation, Donald Trump had the wisdom and the courage to say to that bipartisan consensus, we're not doing it anymore. We're bringing American manufacturing back. We're unleashing American energy. We're going to make more of our own stuff. And this isn't just an economic issue. I mean, I've got 3 beautiful little kids at home, 7, 4, and 2, and I love them very much, and I hope they're in bed right now. But look, so many of the drugs, the pharmaceuticals that we put in the bodies of our children are manufactured by nations that hate us. This has to stop, and we're not going to stop it by listening to experts. We're going to stop it by listening to common sense wisdom, which is what Donald Trump governed on.
Senator, your time is up. Governor Walz, can you address that? I mean, voters say they trust Donald Trump on the economy more. Why?
Well, if you're listening tonight and
proof.
You want billionaires...
4 years of proof. What the fuck are we talking about?
4 years versus 4 years.
You're asking people to believe shit that they know is not true.
I'm not a guy who wanted to ship things overseas, but I understand that, look, we produce soybeans and corn. We need to have fair trading partners. That's something that we believe in. I think the thing that most concerns me on this is Donald Trump was the guy who created the largest trade deficit in American history with China. So the rhetoric is good. Much of what the senator said right there, I'm in agreement with him on this. I watched it happen too. I watched it to my communities, and we talked about that. But we had people undercutting the right to collectively bargain. We had right to work states made it more difficult. We had companies that were willing to ship.
Oh, you're going to bring up unions? That's not smart
profit.
right now, bud.
Folks that
you should be avoiding that.
Are venture capital in some cases, putting money into companies that were overseas.
I would not be bringing up unions right now.
Home. The issue is Donald Trump is talking
people are
about
asking
it.
for the
Kamala
volume
Harris
on
has
the
a
debate to
record,
be turned up a little bit.
250,000
Turn up the
more
volume on the
manufacturing jobs just in out of the IRA.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
So appreciate that. So if you notice, what Governor Walz just did is he said, first of all, Donald Trump has to listen to the experts. And then when he acknowledged that the experts screwed up, he said, well, Donald Trump didn't do nearly as good of a job as the statistics
that's a gross
show
generalization.
that he did. So what Tim Walz is doing, and I honestly, Tim, I think you got a tough job here because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did, and then you simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens. I was raised by a woman who would sometimes go into medical debt so that she could put food on the table in our household. I know what it's like to not be able to afford the things that you need to afford. We can do so much better. To all of you watching, we can get back to an America that's affordable again. We just got to get back to common sense economic principles.
I hope we have a conversation on health care then.
Senator, Governor.
Please.
Thank you. Margaret?
We have a lot to get to ahead.
Realize how many drink every time she says that. We have a lot to get to tonight.
That's what they've said in every debate when Trump is making a point. As soon as Trump starts making a point, like, excuse me, Mr. President, we got a lot to get to.
You guys can help yourself to Hard AF Seltzer up here.
We
Come
want
on
to
up.
ask you about your leadership qualities.
Who are these queers? Are these,
we know them.
Are these
you
MPs?
You said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen
here the other
Square
day.
protests in the spring
Is that your
of
boyfriend?
1989.
Okay, you guys
The
are just
Minnesota
boning.
Public Radio and other media
Totally
outlets are
fine.
reporting
Help
that
yourself.
you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Whoopsies.
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service.
Who
I
fucking
joined the National
cares
Guard
how
at
small the
17,
town you came
worked
from
on
was?
Dayton
Is this the
Farm,
stolen valor
and then
stitch?
I used the
I think
GI
it is.
Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and
wouldn't
forth
say
to
that.
China. The issue for that was to
It's like
try and
dancers to
learn.
China.
Now look, my community knows who I am.
Oh, no, this
they
is
saw
about the
where I was
CCP
at.
stuff.
They look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that. Those same people elected me to Congress for 12 years. And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan people, working on things like farm bills that we got done, working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything, many times I will talk a lot, I will get caught up in the rhetoric, but being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China. I hear the critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be praising Xi Jinping about COVID, and I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about trying to do the best you can for your community, and then it's putting yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is. My commitment, whether it be through teaching, which I was good
Excuse
at,
me, Governor, we had a lot to get to. Oh, I haven't heard that yet.
being
I haven't
a good
heard it.
member of Congress,
Fucking
those are
dummy.
the things that I think are the values that people care about.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
That was
Thank you, Governor.
That's,
Senator Vance,
tough one.
in 2016, you called your running mate, Donald Trump, unfit for the nation's highest office, and you said he could be America's Hitler. I know you've been asked many times, and you've said you regret those comments and explained you then voted for Donald Trump in 2020. But the Washington Post reported new messages last week in which you also disparaged Trump's economic record while he was president, writing to someone in 2020, quote, Trump thoroughly failed to deliver his economic populism. You're now his running mate, and you've shifted many of your policy stances to align with his. If you become vice president, why should Americans trust that you will give Donald Trump the advice he needs to hear, and not just the advice he wants to hear? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Margaret, because I've always been open. And sometimes, of course, I've disagreed with the president, but I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about Donald Trump. I was wrong, first of all, because I believed some of the media stories that turned out to be dishonest fabrications of his record. But most importantly, Donald Trump delivered for the American people. Rising wages, rising take-home pay, an economy that worked for normal Americans, a secure southern border, a lot of things, frankly, that I didn't think he'd be able to deliver on. And yeah, when you screw up, when you misspeak, when you get something wrong and you change your mind, you ought to be honest with the American people about it. It's one of the reasons, Margaret, why I've done so many interviews is because I think it's important to actually explain to the American people where I come down on the issues and what changed. Now, you pointed out to messages from 2020. Margaret, I've been extremely consistent that I think there were a lot of things that we could have done better in the Trump administration the first round if Congress was doing its job. I strongly believe, and I've been a United States Senator, that Congress is not just a high-class debating society. It's not just a forum for senators and congressmen to whine about problems. It's a forum to govern. So there were a lot of things on the border, on tariffs, for example, where I think that we could have done so much more if the Republican Congress and the Democrats in Congress had been a little bit better about how they govern the country. They were so obsessed with impeaching Donald Trump, they couldn't actually govern. And I want to talk about this tariff issue in particular, Margaret, because Tim just accused this of being a national sales tax. Look, the one thing, and you're probably surprised to hear me praising Joe Biden, but the one thing that Joe Biden did is he continued some of the Trump tariffs that protected American manufacturing jobs. And it's the one issue, the most pro-worker part of the Biden administration, it's the one issue where Kamala Harris has run away from Joe Biden's record. Think about this. If you're trying to employ slave laborers in China at $3 a day, you're going to do that and undercut the wages of American workers unless our country stands up for itself and says you're not accessing our markets unless you're paying middle-class Americans a fair wage.
Senator, your time is up. Nora?
Yeah, he stopped speaking like 10 seconds ago.
Now to the issue of reproductive rights.
Stop saying
Governor
that.
Walz, after Roe
Take a
versus
drink.
Wade
Every
was
time she says your time is up, we take a drink. Jesus Christ, I'm going to get fucking
it made
wasted
Minnesota
tonight.
one of the least restrictive states in the nation when it comes to abortion. Former President Trump said in the last debate that you believe abortion, quote, in the ninth
J.D.
month
Vance is going to say, I
is
believe in the
absolutely
Constitution.
fine.
Yep.
And the
Yes or
Constitution
no? Is
demands
that what
the
you support? I'll give you 2
issue be
minutes.
That's not what
adjudicated
the
at the
bill
states.
says, but look, this issue is what's on everyone's mind. Donald Trump
It's not.
put this
I don't
all
think
into
about it.
motion.
No, you don't.
He brags about how great it was that he put the judges in and overturned Roe versus Wade. 52 years of personal autonomy. And then he tells us, oh, we send it to the states. It's a beautiful thing. Amanda Zaworski would disagree with you on it.
Well, the Constitution agrees with you, faggot, or disagrees with you. Shut the fuck up, man. God damn it. Who cares about
complication?
this one instance? That's, by the way, not even real. The story's telling is not real.
At that point, needs to be decided by the
is
doctor.
absolute nonsense.
And that would have been
The Constitution is more important than one
Texas,
person.
That would have put them
Can we agree
in
on
legal
that?
jeopardy. She
330
went home,
million people
got
that
sepsis,
live here.
Nearly dies, and now she
Jesus
may have
fucking
difficulty
Christ.
having children.
Give me more than
Or
one.
in Kentucky, Hadley Duvall, a 12-year-old child, raped and impregnated by her stepfather. Those are horrific. Now, when got asked about that, Senator Vance said 2 wrongs don't make a right. There is no right in this. So in Minnesota, what we did was restore Roe versus Wade. We made sure that we put women in charge of their health care. But look, this is not where, if you don't know Amanda or a Hadley, you soon will. Their Project 2025 is going to have a registry of pregnancies. It's going to make it more difficult, if
They
not
have nothing to do with
impossible,
Project
to get
2025.
contraception
No one has anything. I don't even know
and
what that
limit
is.
access, if not eliminate access to infertility treatments.
Sorry,
For so many
bud.
of you out there listening, me included,
The Constitution is more
infertility treatments are
important
why I have a
than you
child.
wanting to murder babies.
That's nobody else's business.
I'm all
but
for
those
murder,
things are
but
being
come
proposed.
on.
And the
You know,
you
catch-all
love a
on
good
this
murder.
I do. I
well,
enjoy
the
it.
states will
It's-
decide.
I like the way it
what's
smells.
right for Texas might not be right for Washington.
Washington.
That's not how
Well,
this
yeah, brother.
works. This is basic human right. We have seen
I'm sorry.
maternal mortality
Abortion is a basic human
skyrocket
right?
in Texas,
Why should that be?
outpacing many
I
other
don't know.
countries in
Maybe.
the world. This is about health care. In Minnesota, we are ranked first in health care for a reason. We trust women. We trust doctors.
Senator, do you want to respond to the governor's claim? Will you create a federal pregnancy monitoring agency?
No, Nora, certainly we won't. And I want to talk about this issue because I know a lot of Americans care about it, and I know a lot of Americans don't agree with everything that I've ever said on this topic. And, you know, I grew up in a working-class family in a neighborhood where I knew a lot of young women who had unplanned pregnancies and decided to terminate those pregnancies because they feel like they didn't have any other options. And, you know, one of them is actually very dear to me. And I know she's watching tonight, and I love you. And she told me something a couple years ago that she felt like if she hadn't had that abortion, that it would have destroyed her life because she was in an abusive relationship. And I think that what I take from that as a Republican who proudly wants to protect innocent life in this country, who proudly wants to protect the vulnerable, is that my party, we've got to do so much better of a job at earning the American people's trust back on this issue where they frankly just don't trust us. And I think that's one of the things that Donald Trump and I are endeavoring to do. I want us as a Republican Party to be pro-family in the fullest sense of the word. I want us to support fertility treatments. I want us to make it easier for moms to afford to have babies. I want it to make it easier for young families to afford a home so they can afford a place to raise that family. And I think there's so much that we can do on the public policy front just to give women more options. Now, of course, Donald Trump has been very clear that on the abortion policy specifically, that we have a big country and it's diverse. And California has a different viewpoint on this than Georgia. Georgia has a different viewpoint from Arizona. And the proper way to handle this, as messy as democracy sometimes is to let voters make these decisions. Let the individual
By the way,
states
one thing
make
no
their
side will
abortion
tell you on
policy.
abortion
And I think
is
that's
that
what makes the
this
most
problem
sense
is being,
in a
like,
very big,
solved
a
on its
very
own.
diverse,
It is.
and let's be
Just like
honest,
it- just like
a
it was in every state.
Just like it was
Governor,
before
would you
Roe
like
v.
to
Wade,
respond
by the
and
way,
also
which is
answer the
why
question about
Ruth Bader
restrictions?
Ginsburg said
Yeah,
Roe v.
well,
Wade was bad
the
case law.
question got
I'm not
asked
even
when Donald
talking
Trump
about that. The
made the
amount
accusation
of
that wasn't true
abortions
about
since,
Minnesota.
I don't know,
Well, let me
70,
tell you
80, whatever,
about
I
this
forget
idea
what the
that
graph
there's
started
diverse
at,
states. There's a
plummeted
young
to
woman
now.
named Amber
And it is
Thurman.
almost an
She happened to
identical
be in
line to the
Georgia,
amount
a
of teen
restricted
pregnancies
state.
that have also
Because of that,
plummeted.
she
So
had to
despite what
travel
anyone
a
tells you
long
on the right or
distance
left,
to
the
North Carolina
upstream
to try and
problem
get her
solving
care.
has been excellent.
Amber
Yeah.
Thurman
on
And the
this
upstream
issue.
problem solving, by the
in
way,
that
is to convince
journey
teenagers to
back
do
and
only
forth.
anal.
The
Yep.
fact
Yes.
of the matter
And
is,
if
how
that
can we
improves
as a
anal,
nation
then-
say that
For
your
America.
life
For America,
and
guys.
your
Maybe we should
rights
have an American flag
as
with a
basic
butthole instead of
as the right
stars.
to
It's just like 50
control your
buttholes.
America anal
is
again.
determined on
That's,
geography.
I think, what
There's
we
a
need to get
very
back to.
real chance
Brandon
that Amber
Ickert, I know
Thurman
you're watching
lived in
this. Go ahead and
Minnesota.
Make
She would
America
be alive
anal
today.
again shirt.
That's
That'll
why
be
the
on the site by
restoration
tomorrow.
of Roe versus Wade. When you listen to Vice President Harris talk
Brian
about
Cox
this
just
subject,
gave
and you hear
Delco
me talk about
$50
it,
for a
you hear us
vacay.
talking exactly
Says he
the
snapped
same.
at him earlier.
Donald
Obviously
Trump
needs a break.
is trying to figure out
But he
how
loves
to get
you.
the political right of this.
He loves you.
I agree
No,
with a lot
but
of what
he-
Senator Vance
$50
said
is not
about
gonna
that.
Delco
go
is, well,
very
first of all,
far.
$50 bucks is
It's not, and
going
that's the
straight to his
problem.
bookie,
Governor,
first
your
of all.
time is up.
Yeah.
Senator,
Let's be
let me
clear about
ask you
I'll be on
that.
UCF this
You
weekend
mentioned
against
was
Florida
referring to a
+3.
national ban. In the past, you have supported a federal ban on abortion after 15 weeks.
I don't know if we can put
In
a
fact, you said if someone can't support
bunch of buttholes on the
legislation like
American
that,
flag, that's
quote,
probably not a good
you
idea.
are making the
I think if
United
you ask
States
Gary's
the most
parents, though, Gary's
barbaric
32. They would abort him
pro-abortion
now.
regime
So,
anywhere
like,
No, his
32
mom-
years later,
his
what's
mom's
that
a
look
lovely
like?
My
woman.
question is,
Oh, she is? Okay.
why
Yeah.
have you changed
She's
your
like
position?
super sweet. I don't know what
Well,
his
Nora,
fucking problem
first
is.
of all, I never
Yeah.
supported a national ban. I did when I was running for Senate in 2022 talk about setting some minimum national standard. For example, we have a partial birth abortion ban in place in this country at the federal level. I don't think anybody's trying to get rid of that, or at least I hope not, though I know that Democrats have taken a very radical pro-abortion stance. But Nora, one of the things that
Brandon
changed
just texted me.
is
I'll
in the
work
state
on
of
it.
Ohio, we had a referendum in 2023, and the people of Ohio
Brandon, do not
voted
put buttholes on the
overwhelmingly, by the way,
American
against my position. And I think that what I learned from that, Nora, is that we've got to do a better job at winning back people's trust. So many young women would love to have families. So many young women also see an unplanned pregnancy as something that's going to destroy their livelihood, destroy their education, destroy their relationships. And we have got to earn people's trust back. And that's why Donald Trump and I are committed to pursuing pro-family policies, making childcare more accessible, making fertility treatments more accessible, because we've got to do a better job at that. And that's
Tim
what
Walz
real
looks
leadership
continuously
is.
worried
Governor, your
that a
response.
storm is
I'm
coming
going to respond on
and
the
there's no
on the
roof.
pro-abortion
He's worried
piece of
about
that.
getting
No, we're
raped.
not.
It's like,
We're
God, they're going to
pro-women.
get in here and rape
We're
me any minute.
pro-freedom
That's what
to
happens
make
when you
your
spend
own
too much
choice.
time in
We
China.
know what the implications are to not be that. Women having miscarriages, women not getting the care, physicians feeling like they may be prosecuted for providing that care. And as far as making sure that we're educating our children and giving them options, Minnesota's a state with one of the lowest teen pregnancy rates. We understand that too. We know that the options need to be available, and we make that true. We also make it
Tim
we're a
Walz
top
reminds me
3
of
state
Richard Reilly in
for the best
Office
place to
Space.
raise children.
Yeah.
I'm a people
These two
person.
things
I'm
to
a
try and
fucking
say
people person.
that we're-
What
we're
is it that you
pro-children,
do?
but we don't want this, or you guys are
people person,
pro-abortion.
right? I'm a
That's not the
fucking
case at
people
all.
person.
Didn't
We
he
are
die?
pro-freedoms
No,
for women
he's
to make
alive
their
and well.
choices.
Are you sure?
And
Yeah, I
we're
talked to him
going,
2 weeks
and
ago.
Kamala Harris is making the
Love him.
case.
I thought he
to
was
make
dead.
options
Is he
for
sick or
children
something?
more
I saw him
affordable.
somewhere
$6,000
recently.
child
Very well.
tax credit.
Oh, good for him.
He's
But
alive
we're
and
not
well.
going to
I love
base that
that
on the
dude.
back
So do I.
of making
He's a
someone like
fucking
Amber
lunatic.
Thurman drive
Not
600
as
miles
big
to
a
try and
lunatic
get
as
health
Bob
care.
Vance.
Great
though.
person.
May I respond
Bob
to that?
Vance
First
is
of
a fucking
all,
psycho.
Governor, I agree with you. Amber Thurman
He's
should
like
still be
full
alive,
IQ
and a
and
lot of
all.
people should still be alive. But I certainly
But
wish
yeah,
that
he's
she
psycho.
was.
Yeah, I mean,
And maybe
in a good way.
You're free to disagree with me on this and explain
Shout
this
out
to
to
me.
Robert
But as I
Schaefer.
read
Yeah, I
the
love that
Minnesota
dude.
law that you signed
seen him in a while.
into law, the statute that you signed into law, it says that a doctor who presides over an abortion where the baby survives, the doctor is under no obligation to provide life-saving care to a baby who survives a botched late-term abortion. That is, I think,
That's
whether
not
you're
true.
pro-choice or
That's not
pro-abortion,
It's 100% true.
fundamentally barbaric.
In 8
And that's
states
why
in the
I
United
use that
States,
word,
that's
Nora, is
true.
because some of what we've seen, do you want to force Catholic hospitals to perform abortions against their will? Because Kamala Harris has supported suing Catholic nuns to violate their freedom of conscience. We can be a big and diverse country where we respect people's freedom of conscience and make the country more pro-baby and pro-family. But please.
Yes, Governor, please respond.
Look, this is one where there's always something there. This is a very simple proposition. These are women's decisions to make about their healthcare decisions, and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point, that's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me, what was I wrong
about? That is not the way the law is written. Look, I've given
But
this,
how?
I've given this advice on a lot of things, that getting involved, that's been misread, and it was fact-checked at the last debate. But the point on this is there's a continuation of these guys to try and tell women or to get involved. I use this line on this, just mind your own business.
Well, we'll
on
find
this.
out.
Things work best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration of Roe, that works best. That doesn't preclude us from increasing funding for children. It doesn't increase us from making sure that once that child's born, like in Minnesota, they get meals, they get early childhood education, they get health care. So the hiding behind we're going to do all these other things when you're not proposing them in your budget, Kamala Harris is proposing them. She's proposing all those things to make life easier for families.
I asked a specific question, Governor. You gave me a slogan as a response.
It's not the case. It's not true. That's not what the law says. So they fact-checked it with President Trump.
Gentlemen, there's a lot to discuss. We have to move on, and we're going to be right back
Again,
with much
dude,
more
a lot
of the
to
CBS
discuss.
News Vice
Jesus
Presidential
Christ.
debate in just
Every
a moment.
time Vance speaks.
Commercial.
Commercial. You can go ahead and turn it down for a bit. We'll pull it back up as soon as obviously both candidates come back after the commercial break. Right now, biggest takeaways. Vance has been in a courtroom for a majority of his life. He's very, very good at this. Walz has never been on this stage before.
Boring.
I'm convinced that if J.D. Vance was the presidential candidate, he'd be up by 15
I agree.
points.
If it was like a J.D. Vance Tulsi ticket right now, it would be fucking.
Yeah,
It would
probably.
be,
Well,
it'd be
up by a mile.
The reason this race is close is because Donald Trump is
And it's only because
retarded.
people hate Trump. It's not because of anything he's ever actually done.
And I think
they just
he
hate him
chose
so much.
J.D. Vance because he's only getting 4 years. So
Yeah.
somebody's got to go in 28.
He chose the guy most like himself because he's an egomaniac.
Yes,
Let's be real with that.
but Vance is very good at this.
Yeah.
He's very calm at this. And like I've said weeks and weeks and weeks ago on this show, he's been doing interviews with this particular woman for 6 fucking weeks. So like he knows her. He knows how to combat her and everything else. And so far, it's a nice back and forth. And he answers all the fucking questions, which is what I've said for 6 weeks.
Yeah, somebody asked me what I thought of the debate so far. Vance is good at debating, and Walz is obviously not. Vance has most of the facts on his side because he's appealing to a time when Trump, I mean, through no fault of his own, frankly, because he wasn't even doing shit back then. He's just appealing to a successful Trump presidency for the most part, right?
Yep.
And Walz is appealing to the last 3.5 years, which sucks. So it's kind of like if Walz is a better debater than Vance, this would be a good debate, right? Because each side would have a weapon. It's kind of fucking boring so far. Buttigieg tweeted, "Remarkable to see J.D. Vance pretend to be unaware the U.S. energy production is up and U.S. manufacturing is up dramatically right now, much higher than under Trump. Glad Tim Walz is laying down the facts here." And I said it was up 12.9% under it's up 12.9% under your cunt admin. It was up 25% under Trump. Go back to breastfeeding your lab baby, bitch.
Look, that's
Now,
important.
I don't know for sure, and maybe they can fact check me. CBS will fact check me on this. If it's him or his gay ass husband that's breastfeeding the baby, it could be either one of them. So far as we know,
Not sure, and we don't have any proof yet. Now, here's what I will say in all sincerity, as far as Walz is concerned in this. He's at a disadvantage. One, he was picked 60 days ago. 2, he's got a run on her record for the last 3.5 years, which sucks. And this is, I mean, he started in a fucking deep, deep hole. and you got to dig your way out of it. The problem is you already have 4 years worth of Trump, which we saw. You have the results you wanted and everything else, so you can run off that record, and now you're running off of Kamala's record.
That's
Walz
tough.
personally is at a disadvantage.
That's what I'm saying.
Because he's got to stick up for this administration, which is fucking sucks.
And he's he's obviously not a good debater.
But he's
he's not the worst in the world, but that shit with China just then was brutal.
Right. And look, it's not great, but here's the thing. He was thrust into this situation. He didn't know.
You keep saying thrust, and to be honest, I'm getting hard.
Well, if you want me to have sex with Tim Walz tonight, I will.
His slick forehead.
Here's why I said thrust is Kamala Harris said this earlier. I don't know if you saw the comments. She said she was suffering from insomnia once Biden decided to step down, and she picked a candidate at the last minute, and it was Tim Walz. She's not sure if she made the right decision, which was not great to say in an interview. Now, for Tim, again, he's 60 days away, man. He's probably doing the best that he can right now, but you're also going up against a trial attorney who's had multiple interviews with this fucking person who's been combative against him forever. He's used to it. He's used to her cadence, everything else. She's trying to shut it down. He shut down the fact-checking earlier. He's probably doing the best he can at this point, but there's no saving a record of what's going on now versus what happened in 2016 to 2020.
Yeah,
So
I mean, he's like
nothing you can do.
It's like listening to a Cowboys fan.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. That's kind of what it feels like.
This is our year.
It's like, oh, fucking Dak. Like, no,
Dak didn't do it for the last 4 years.
No, and I don't envy the position. All right, we're back.
We are back. By the way, if you guys want to put those the headsets on the Ross Patterson Revolution set,
Welcome back
feel
to
free.
the
You guys can
CBS
both hear
Yeah,
that.
Gary, do your job.
You can sit in our chairs. I prefer the girl to sit in my chair,
America's
though. I don't want to
gun
smell you.
violence epidemic.
Okay, I don't want to smell
the
you.
leading cause
God,
of death
for real.
for children
It's not because
and
you're not white
teens
either.
in
Yeah,
America
no, it is.
by
That too.
firearms.
You're not white.
Senator
Sorry, bro.
Vance, you oppose most gun legislation that Democrats claim would curb gun violence. You oppose red flag gun laws and legislation to ban certain semi-automatic rifles, including AR-15s. So let me ask you, earlier this year, for the first time, the parents of a school shooter were convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Do you think holding parents responsible could curb mass shootings? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, Nora, on that particular case, I don't know the full details, but I certainly trust local law enforcement and local authorities to make those decisions. I think in some cases the answer is going to be yes, and in some cases the answer is going to be no. And the details really matter here, of course. For example, if a kid steals a gun, that's going to be different than if a parent hands over a gun knowing that their kid is potentially dangerous. But look, I want to just sort of speak as a father of 3 beautiful little kids, and our oldest is now in 2nd grade. And like a lot of parents, we send our kids to school with such hope and such joy and such pride at their little faces on the first day of school. And we know, unfortunately, that a lot of kids are going to experience this terrible epidemic of gun violence. And of course, our hearts go out to the families that are affected by this terrible stuff. And we do have to do better. And I think that Governor Walz and I actually probably agree that we need to do better on this. The question is just how do we actually do it? Now, here's something that really bothers me and worries me about this epidemic of violence. The gross majority, close to 90% in some of the statistics I've seen, of the gun violence in this country is committed with illegally obtained firearms. And while we're on that topic, we know that thanks to Kamala Harris's open border, we've seen a massive influx in the number of illegal guns run by the Mexican drug cartel. So that number, the amount of illegal guns in our country is higher today than it was 3.5 years ago. But what do we do about the schools? What do we do to protect our kids? And I think the answer is, and I say this not loving the answer, because I don't want my kids to go to school in a school that feels unsafe or where there are visible signs of security. But I unfortunately think that we have to increase security in our schools. We have to make the doors lock better. We have to make the doors stronger. We've got to make the windows stronger. And of course, we've got to increase school resource officers, because the idea
they have done that at our schools in Texas.
So
I don't like Governor Abbott, but he has at least done that
here. Fit with recent experience, so we've got to make our schools safer. And I think we've got to have some common sense bipartisan solutions for how to do that.
Governor, you have 2 minutes.
Well, I think all the parents watching tonight, this is your biggest nightmare. Look, I got a 17-year-old, and he witnessed a shooting at a community center playing volleyball. Those things don't leave you. As a member of Congress, I sat in my office surrounded by dozens of the Sandy Hook parents, and they were looking at my 7-year-old picture on the wall. Their 7-year-old were dead, and they were asking us to do something. And look, I'm a hunter. I own firearms. The vice president is. We understand that the Second Amendment is there, but our first responsibility is to our kids to figure this out. In Minnesota, we've enacted enhanced red flag laws, enhanced background checks, and we can start to get data. But here's the problem. If we really want to solve this, we've got folks that won't allow research to be even done on gun violence. And this idea that we should just live with it, and here's what I do think, that this is a good start to the conversation. I 100% believe that Senator Vance hates it when these kids, it's abhorrent and it breaks your heart. I agree with that. But that's not far enough when we know there are things that work. I've spent time in Finland and seen some Finnish schools. They don't have this happen, even though they have a high gun ownership rate in the country. There are reasonable things that we can do to make a difference.
Jokala
it's
school
not
shooting
infringing on your
in
Second Amendment.
2007
And
is
the
one of the
idea to
largest
have
school
some
shootings
of
in the
these
history of the
weapons
world.
out there, it just doesn't make any sense.
Finland.
Kamala Harris, as an attorney general, worked on this issue. She knows that it's there. No one's trying to scaremonger
There's a
and say we're
Finland
taking
school
your
shooting in
guns, but
April
I
of this
ask
year, as a
all
matter
of
of
you
fact.
out there, do you want your
Fuck's this guy
schools
talking
hardened
about?
to look like a fort? Is that what we have to go? When
In
we
Norway,
know
right next door.
there's countries around the
Also
world
high gun owning.
that their
Remember that
children
guy?
aren't
The white nationalist dude that killed like 80
drills.
people?
They're being kids. We owe
Yeah.
it to them to get a fix.
Should've
These
stayed
are
in
things
China
that shouldn't
longer.
be that difficult. You can still keep your firearms, and we can make a difference. We have to. If you're listening tonight, this breaks your heart.
Senator.
Tim, first of all, I didn't know that your 17-year-old witnessed a shooting. And I'm sorry about that, and I hope that he's
appreciate
doing
you
okay.
saying so.
Christ have mercy. It is awful. And I appreciate what Tim said, actually, about Finland, because I do think it illustrates some of the frankly, weird differences between our own country's gun violence problem and Finland is, okay, first of all, we have way higher rates of mental health abuse, or mental health substance abuse. We have way higher rates of depression, way higher rates of anxiety. We unfortunately have a mental health crisis in this country that I really do think that we need to get to the root causes of, because I don't think it's the whole reason why we have such a bad gun violence problem, but I do think it's a big piece of it. Another driver of the gun violence epidemic, especially that affecting our kids, it doesn't earn as many headlines, but is the terrible gun violence problem in a lot of our big cities. And this is why we have to empower law enforcement to arrest the bad guys, put them away, and take gun offenders off the streets. I think there's a whole host of things that we can do here, but I do think at our schools we've got to talk about more security.
Senator, thank you. Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but it only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long
friends
time.
with
They used
school
to teach gun
shooters.
safety. I'm of an age where
I don't think that's
my
what he
shotgun
meant.
was
I'm
in
gonna
my
give him the
car, so I
benefit of
could
the
fess
doubt
it
on
after
that
football
one.
practice.
He
That's
says he
not what we live
misspoke
today.
sometimes,
And-
and
that's
he
one of the
obviously
things
was
I
just
wanna
lying with
mention
that
on
one. He
this is
definitely misspoke.
Talking about cities and where it's at, the number one where the most firearm deaths happen in Minnesota are rural suicides. And we have an epidemic of children getting guns
No.
and shooting themselves.
No.
So we have,
That is
and
not.
we
That's
should look
absolutely
at all
not
of the
true. He
issues.
just said the most gun
Making
deaths
sure folks
in
have
Minnesota
healthcare and all
are
that, but I
rural
wanna be very careful.
suicides.
This idea
can't
of
be true, right?
stigmatizing
Well, it
mental
might
health-
be.
Suicide outweighs
67% of all gun
homicide, yeah.
deaths
doesn't
are
mean you're
fucking
violent.
suicide,
And
right?
so
So
what
almost
we end up
certainly
doing is we
suicide
start looking
outweighs-
for a scapegoat.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just is the guns. It's just the guns.
It's not.
And there are
You know,
things
you
that
can
do
kill
about
yourself
it.
with
But I
anything.
do think
Yeah.
that this is one. And
Well,
I
they
think
use
this is a healthy
guns. I mean,
conversation.
most gun deaths
I
are
think there's
suicides,
a capacity to find
right? Like
solutions
2 to
on this
1.
that work.
67.
Right.
Yeah,
Protect our
about 2
children.
to 1.
That's our
Yeah.
priority.
Gentlemen, thank you. Margaret?
Thank you, Nora. Let's turn now to the top contributor
that's
to
correct.
inflation, the high cost of housing and rent. There's a shortage of more than 4 million homes in the United
This is what I was
States.
talking about, Tim Walz
and that
going on a
contributes
disadvantage.
to the
He's gotta
high housing
go up against
prices.
all the shit.
Governor Walz, the Harris campaign promises a $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers and a $10,000
By the way, there are
tax credit.
400
They
million
also
guns
promise to build 3
privately owned in
million
America.
new homes.
If it was the guns, we
Where
would
are
all
you
be dead.
building
Yeah.
these homes, and won't handing out that
Idiot.
kind of money just drive up prices higher?
No, it's not handing out. We have, first, let me say this issue of housing, and I think those of you listening on this, the problem we've had is that we've got a lot of folks that see housing as another commodity. It can be bought up, it can be shifted, it can be moved around. Those are not folks living in those houses. Those of you listening tonight, that house is a big deal. I bought and owned one house in my life. My mom still lives in the house where I was. And when I think of a house, I'm thinking of Christmas services after midnight mass where you go with your family. We need to make it more affordable. And one of the things, as I said, this program
Make more
that
of
the
it.
Vice President is
That's
is,
the only way to make
pushing
housing more
forward
affordable is
and
to make
bringing
more
a new
houses.
way of approaching this is something we're doing in Minnesota from that lead. We in the state invested in making sure our housing was the biggest investment that we'd ever made in housing. It starts to
And
make
also
it
ban
easier. We
BlackRock,
cut some of the
Vanguard,
red
State
tape.
Street from
Local
owning
folks,
private
look,
homes.
we can't do it at the federal level, but local folks make it easier to build those homes. And then that down payment assistance. I can tell all of you out there, one of the, certainly for me, using the GI Bill was one thing, but a veteran's home loan, the big thing about a veteran's home loan is
Zero
you
interest.
don't have to pay the
No down payment, no PMI either.
Those are things that make it there. Now, look, you're going to pay it back, and you're going to pay your mortgage. Those are things that we know in the long run, the appreciated value, the generational wealth.
We're not giving
that's
stuff that we
created
give
from
to
it.
veterans who
And I will
risk their
give
life for the
Minneapolis an
country
example.
to random
Minneapolis is
people.
the
I
one
agree.
city
Like,
If you're a
fuck off,
veteran,
dude.
there's a reason why that's in
We've seen a 12%
law
increase in
is because
stock
it's going to
we put
veterans.
some of these things in, and we're implementing a state program to make sure we give some of that down payment assistance. We get it back from people because here's what we know. People with stable housing end up with stable jobs. People with stable housing have their kids able to get to school. All of those things in the long run end up saving our money. And that's the thing that I think we should be able to find some common ground in, but we can't blame immigrants for the only reason. That's not the case that's happening in many cities. The fact of the matter is that we don't have enough naturally affordable housing, but we can make sure that the
I think
government's
this
there
is
to
one
help
issue where
kickstart
both
it,
sides
create that create that base.
Governor, your time is
Probably
up.
not
Senator
everybody, but
Vance,
most
Mostly
people agree on
as
this
far
one.
as your
Yeah.
campaign's position, the promise is to seize federal lands to build homes, remove regulation, provide tax breaks,
Why would
and
the federal
cut back
government
on
own land?
immigration, which you
Yeah.
say pushes
Why
up
would they own
prices.
that?
Fuck off.
I agree with it.
Where are you going
Give it
build
to
all the
poor
new
black
homes
people,
you're
that 40
promising,
acres and a
and
mule
what
you
part
owe
of
them.
Any of this
Then
plan
they'll have
will
houses.
provide immediate relief. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Tim just said something that I agree with. We don't want to blame immigrants for higher housing prices, but we do want to blame Kamala Harris for letting in millions of illegal aliens into this
Pass the
country,
bill.
which does drive up costs, Tim. 25
Even if you pass the
million
bill,
illegal aliens
1.5
competing with
million
Americans for
would come
scarce
in every
homes is
year.
one of the
That's
And
why I
that's
just wanna
more
pass the
than
bill.
any other
of
year
home
in
prices
American
in the
history,
country.
other
It's
than a
why we
Kamala
have
Harris fucking administration.
massive
That's why we don't
increases
pass the
in
bill.
home
God
prices
damn it.
This bill is
that have
worthless.
happened right alongside massive increases in illegal
Fucking dumb bitch.
alien populations under Kamala Harris's leadership. Now, Tim just mentioned a bunch of ideas. Now, some of those ideas I actually think are halfway decent, and some of them I disagree with. But the most important thing here is Kamala Harris is not running as a newcomer to politics. She is the sitting vice president. If she wants to enact all of these policies to make housing more affordable, I invite her to use the office that the American people already gave her, not sit around and campaign and
Really
do
is the
nothing
excuse that
while
she just has
Americans
no
find
influence
the
over
American
Biden?
dream of
Like, oh,
homeownership
Biden's the
completely
president, so
unaffordable.
walk down the
Now, you
fucking
asked
hall and
Tom,
say,
what
hey,
would
dude,
immediately
we want to be,
change the equation for American
we want to make the country
citizens
better. Do you
is
mind
shut down the
signing
border.
this EO?
energy prices. As
Jesus
Donald Trump
Christ,
says,
dude.
drill,
What a
baby,
weird thing to
drill.
say.
One of the biggest drivers of housing costs, aside from illegal immigration, is think about it. If a truck driver is paying 40% more for diesel, then the lumber he's delivering to the job site to build the house is also going to become a lot more expensive. If we open up American energy, you will get immediate pricing relief for American citizens, not, by the way, just in housing, but in a whole host of other economic goods, too.
Senator Vance, you still have 23 seconds there. Do you want to answer
Can I have it?
where? Yeah. Governor, we will get to you in a moment. But Senator,
What a
where are you
cunt
going to seize
thing
the
to
federal
say.
lands? Can you clarify?
Well, what Donald Trump has said is we have a lot of federal
23
lands that aren't
seconds?
being used for anything. They're not being used for national park. They're not being used, and they could be places where we build a lot of housing. And I do think that we should be
these are
opening up
freedom- these are
building
the
in this
freedom
country.
cities.
We have a lot of land that could be used. We have a lot of Americans that need homes. We should be kicking out illegal immigrants who are competing for those homes, and we should be building more homes for the American citizens who deserve to be here.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, I do want to let you respond to the allegation that the vice president is letting in
Well, of course, that's not
migrants
true. And again,
that
you
it's
have the
affecting
facts. I
housing
guess we
prices.
agreed not to fact check. I'll check it. That look, crossings are down compared to when Donald Trump left office.
That is
But
not
it's, again,
fucking true.
Blaming and not trying.
Not
to find
even
a solution.
close.
I was
That
going to
illegal
on this question.
immigrant
Are we going to
crossings
drill
are
and build
down
houses in the
from
same
Donald
federal
Trump.
land?
I can read you
And
the
I think
data
when
right
people
now.
hear
Hang
federal
on.
lands, these are
God
really
damn it.
important
I just
pieces of
got this
land.
from-
Now,
No
Minnesota
way.
doesn't have a
I
lot
just
of
got
federal
this from
lands. I know
Border
in the western
Patrol
part of the
on
country
Sunday,
you do.
actually.
There's not a lot of federal lands in and around
2017,
Minneapolis, for example. So the issue is I
310,531.
don't understand the federal land
2018, 404, 142, 2019, 859, 501, and the 2020, 405, 04, 036, which is Title 42 remain in Mexico because of COVID.
These lands protect. They're there for a reason. They belong
the first
to
year,
all of us.
Biden-Harris,
But again, this is when you view
1.662,
housing
167,
and you view these things as
1.66 million.
commodities. Like there's a chance to make
2022,
money here. Let's take this federal land
2.214
and let's
million.
sell it to people for that.
2023,
I think there's better ways to do this. We've seen it in Minnesota.
0.63
We're able
million.
to refurbish some of these houses.
And everybody
Everything
knows
he
this
just said
isn't
was a
true.
fucking lie.
Everybody
Literally
knows
everything he
that's not
said.
true with immigration.
On the fact on this.
Everything he said was a
economists,
lie right there.
Senator Vance, you said you
You
don't
can
like
just look
the
this shit up
economists.
on goddamn
Which
Google.
economists are saying that it is immigrants that's adding to the cost?
Governor,
Where's
your
the study?
time is up. But Senator,
Don't
on that
apologize, you
point,
little
I'd
bitch.
Let him
like
answer.
for
If he
you
wants to answer,
clarify
let him
there
go.
are
Hey, why
many
would
contributing
you apologize?
factors
Sorry that I
to
went over my
housing
time, you
costs.
little
What
fucking
evidence do you
gaylord.
have that migrants are part of this problem?
Well, there's a Federal Reserve study that we're happy to share after the debate. We'll put it up on social media, actually, that really drills down on the connection between increased levels of migration, especially illegal immigration, and higher housing prices. Now, of course, Margaret, that's not the entire driver of higher housing prices. It's also the regulatory regime of Kamala Harris. Look, we are a country of builders. We're a country of doers. We're a country of explorers. But we increasingly have a federal administration that makes it harder to develop our resources, makes it harder to build things, and wants to throw people in jail for not doing everything exactly as Kamala Harris says they have to do. And what that means is that you have a lot of people who would love to build homes who aren't able to build homes. I actually agree with Tim Walz. We should get out of this idea of housing as a commodity. But the thing that has most turned housing into a commodity is giving it away to millions upon millions of people who have no legal right to be here.
What are the federal regulations? I deal with this as a governor.
You can very quickly reply.
I'm sorry. I get this as a governor, and I don't necessarily disagree with that, that in some cases, many of those are local, many of them are state. I don't know which ones are federal, but I think whenever we talk regulations, people think they can get rid of them. I think you want to be able to get out of your house in a fire. I think you want to make sure that it's fireproof and those types of things. So which are the regulations? Because the vice president's not responsible for those. Congress writes those.
Governor, thank you. Gentlemen,
Man,
we have
I
a
mean,
lot
they
to get
just,
to. You're passionate
again,
about
drink.
the housing crisis.
We have a
can
lot
tell.
to get to.
But
They
Nora?
don't let him
Thank you.
answer a
One of the top
fucking
problems
rebuttal.
facing Americans is the high
I need
cost
more
of health care.
booze, more hard AF
Senator
seltzer.
Vance,
Jesus
at the last
Christ.
presidential debate, former President Trump was asked about replacing the Affordable Care Act. In response, he said, "I have concepts of a plan." Since then, Senator, you've talked about changing how chronically ill Americans get health insurance. Can you explain how that would work? And can you guarantee that Americans with pre-existing conditions won't pay more? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, of course, we're going to cover Americans with pre-existing conditions. In fact, a lot of my family members have gotten health care. I believe, members of my family actually got private health insurance, at least for the first time, switched off of Medicaid onto private insurance for the first time under Donald Trump's leadership. And I think that, a lot of people have criticized this concepts of a plan remark. Look, it's very simple common sense. I think as Tim Walz knows from 12 years in Congress, you're not going to propose a 900-page bill standing on a debate stage. It would bore everybody to tears, and it wouldn't actually mean anything because part of this is the give and take of bipartisan negotiation. Now, when Donald Trump was actually president, and again, he has a record to be proud of, prescription drugs fell in 2018 for the first time in a very long time. Under Kamala Harris's leadership, prescription drugs are up about 7%. Under Donald Trump's entire 4 years, they were up about 1.5%. He introduced pricing transparency. Think about healthcare. You go into a hospital, you try to buy something, and nobody knows what it actually costs. That price transparency will actually give American consumers a little bit more choice and will also drive down costs. And we talked about, the reinsurance regulations is what I was talking about. Look, Donald Trump has said that if we allow states to experiment a little bit on how to cover both the chronically ill but the non-chronically ill, it's not just a plan. He actually implemented some of these regulations when he was president of the United States. And I think you can make a really good argument that it salvaged Obamacare, which was doing disastrously until Donald Trump came along. And I think this is an important point about President Trump. Of course, you don't have to agree with every everything that President Trump has ever said or ever done. But when Obamacare was crushing under the weight of its own regulatory burden and health care costs, Donald Trump could have destroyed the program. Instead, he worked in a bipartisan way to ensure that Americans had access to affordable care. It's not perfect, of course, and there's so much more that we can do, but I think that Donald Trump has earned the right to put in place some better health care policies. He's earned it because he did it successfully the first time.
Governor?
All right, here's where being an old guy gives you some history. I was there at the creation of the ACA. And the reason it was so
It was
important
2011,
is
dude.
Yeah.
The fuck are you talking about?
I was there
Healthcare
too,
state,
dude.
Home of the
And I'm
Mayo
33.
Clinic, home to Medical
Jesus
Alley,
Christ.
3M,
Yeah.
Medtronic. All
What
of
the-
those.
what the
We
fuck is he
understand
talking about?
healthcare.
I
don't
It's
know.
why we're
I mean, I was
ranked
20
first
at
on
the time. I don't
affordability and
remember it.
accessibility and
You
quality
are
of healthcare.
70, 80 years
And
old.
so
Not
what I
true.
know
We're
is
not
under
fact
Kamala
checking
Harris,
tonight. You heard the fucking
more people are
moderators.
covered than they have before. And those of you listening, this is critical to you. Now, Donald Trump all of a sudden wants to. Go back and remember this. He ran on the first thing he was going to do on day one was to repeal Obamacare. On day one, he tried to sign an executive order to repeal the ACA. He signed on to a lawsuit to repeal the ACA, but lost at the Supreme Court. And he would have repealed the ACA had it not been for the courage of John McCain to save that bill. Now, fast forward, what that means to you is you lose your pre-existing conditions. If you're sitting
just
at home
like
and you
I
got
lost
asthma,
my doctor?
too bad. If you're a
I lost
woman,
my
probably
doctor,
not.
and that
broke your
sucked
foot
for me.
during football, might kick you out. Your
I had
kids
him
get
for
kicked out
10
when they're
years.
26.
I lost my
Kamala
doctor.
Harris negotiated drug prices for the first time with Medicare. We have 10 drugs that will come online, the most common ones that'll be there. But look, this issue, and when Donald Trump said, I've got a concept of a plan, it cracked me up as a fourth grade teacher because my kids would have never given me that. But what Senator Vance just explained might be worse than a concept, because what he explained is pre-Obamacare. And I'll make this as simple as possible because I have done this for a long time. What they're saying is, if you're healthy, why should you be paying more? So what they're going to do is let insurance companies pick who they insure, because guess what happens? You pay your premium, it's not much. They figure they're not going to have to pay out to you. But those of you a little older, gray,
Communism,
cancer,
then, is what you're
gonna
saying.
Get kicked out of it.
I'm
That's
healthy,
why
I
the
take
system
care of my
didn't work.
body.
Kamala Harris will
Right?
protect and
Yep.
enhance the
I
ACA.
eat well and I work out,
Governor,
and
thank
I'm
you.
not a
Senator,
fat piece
you
of
have
shit
not
like
yet
you.
explained how you
But
would
I have to pay
protect
for your
people
fucking
with
health care. It's not
pre-existing
fair
conditions.
that my
Or
health
laid
care
out
is
that
cheaper.
plan.
Fuck you.
That's
Look,
been
we
the
currently
argument
have
forever.
laws and regulations
Fucked,
in
you
place,
piece of
in
shit.
place right now that protect people with pre-existing conditions. We want to keep those regulations
God
in place.
damn
but
it,
we also
man.
want to make the health
You are not
insurance
entitled to
marketplace
anybody else's
function a
fucking
little
money
bit better.
because you can't
Now,
stop
what Governor
stuffing your
Walz
fat
just
fucking
said
face.
is actually not true. A lot of what happened, and the reason that Obamacare was crushing under its own weight, is that a lot of young and healthy people were leaving the exchanges. Donald Trump actually helped address that problem, and he did so in a way that preserved people's access to coverage who had pre-existing conditions. But again, something that these guys do is they make a lot of claims about if Donald Trump becomes president, all of these terrible consequences are going to ensue. But in reality, Donald Trump was president. Inflation was low. Take-home pay was higher. And he saved the very program from a Democratic administration that was collapsing and would have collapsed absent his leadership. He did his job, which is govern in a bipartisan way and get results, not just complain about problems, but actually solve them.
Governor, did enrollment under the Affordable Care Act go up under the Trump administration?
It's
Why are you
higher
asking
now
him?
that we've seen it go up. Look, people are using it. The system works. And the question about
People
this,
are using
young
it. They
people,
have
whatever,
to.
that's
You
the
idiot.
individual
Yeah,
mandate.
they don't have a
What are you
choice.
talking about?
And Republicans fought
have a choice
tooth and
in that.
nail.
You literally pass
saying,
a law
well, Americans
where
should
they
be
get
treated different.
fined
Well, then
if they
why
I
don't
think
use
the
it.
individual mandate's a good idea.
At tax time.
Yeah.
I think the
The
idea
fuck?
of making
People
sure
are
the
using
risk
it 'cause
pool
we
is broad
fucking
enough
forced them
cover
to.
everyone.
It's
That's the way
working.
Insurance
Yeah.
works. When
You
it
get
doesn't,
fines.
it collapses. You are asking pre-ACA where we get people out. Look, people know that they need to be on health care. People expect it to be there. And when we are able to make it, and we are making it this way, when we incentivize people to be in the market, when we help people who might not be able to afford it get there, and we make sure then when you get sick and old, it's there for you. Because I heard people say, well, I don't want to buy into Medicare or whatever. Good luck buying health care once you get past 70. So look, the ACA works. We can continue to do better. Kamala Harris did that. The way she made everything
70
better
goes to
was
Medicare, by the way.
negotiating those
So
10 drugs on Medicare for the first time in American history.
Thank you. Margaret?
Can I
We're-
address that?
I apologize. We're out of time. We have a
You're
number of
not out of
subjects to
time.
discuss.
That's the ninth time
Let's
you've
talk
said
about
that.
Families in America.
Fucking A, dude.
There is a child
God,
crisis
you're going to get me
in this
wasted
country,
tonight. You've
and
got to
the
stop
United
saying
States
that.
is one of the very
I've had
few
6
developed
fucking hard
countries
AFs tonight.
in the world
Jesus Christ.
without a national paid leave program for new parents. Governor Walz, you said that if Democrats win both the White House and Congress, this is a day one priority for you. How long should employers be required to pay workers while they are home taking care of their newborns? You have 2 minutes.
Do you want somebody else to pay for it for you?
Yeah, I do. I want Tim Walz to pay for my Uber tonight.
Worked, but here's what
pay
the deal
for
is.
yourself, you drunk bitch.
Americans sitting out there right now. You may work
Sorry,
for a
Tim.
big company. Look, we're home in Minnesota to some of the largest Fortune 500 companies. Kamala Harris knows that in California. Those companies provide paid family and medical leave. One is, I think they're moral and they think it's a good thing, but it also keeps their employees healthy. We in Minnesota passed a paid family and medical leave. You have a child, and I had to go back to work 5 days after my kids were born. This allows you to stay home a certain amount of time. What we know is
fuck you. It is not up to everybody else to subsidize you staying at home with your kids.
We get more consistency.
God damn it.
So Kamala Harris has made it a priority. We implemented it in Minnesota and we see growth. That's how you become a pro-business state. But the negotiations on it, and here's the issue. Those big companies are able to offer it. Those of you out there who don't have it, just imagine what happens if you get cancer or your child gets sick. We know what happens. You end up staying home. In some places, that means no paycheck because you've got no protection on that. This is the case of an economy that Donald Trump has set for the wealthiest amongst us. He's willing to give those tax breaks to the wealthiest. He's willing to say, bust those unions up, do whatever.
Fuck yeah.
What we're saying is the
Bust
economy
every
works
union.
best when it works for all of us. And so a paid family medical leave program, and I will tell you, go to the families or go to the businesses and ask them. As far as child care on this, you have to take it.
The government doesn't have the right to take your money away and give it to somebody
people in our
else.
lives to take care of their
We literally
children
fought a
or
goddamn
our
revolution
parents to get
over a
paid the least amount
2%
of
tax
money.
on
And we
tea,
have to
for
make
Christ's
it
sake.
easier for folks to be able to get into that
Now,
business.
I've
been
and
in
then to
2
make sure that
unions and
folks are
they
able to pay
suck.
for that. We were able to do it in
Fucking
Minnesota,
suck.
and I'm still telling you this. We were listed as the best state. We're still in crisis on this. A federal program of paid family and medical leave and help with this will
Carjackings are up
enhance our families, and make it
3,000%
easier to have
in
the children that
Minneapolis.
you want.
Governor, your time
Don't ever
is
say you're
up.
the best state at
Senator,
anything.
do you support a national paid leave program?
No.
And
No.
if so, for how long should employers be mandated to
0
pay their
days.
employees while they are home taking care of their newborn? You have
Female,
2
yes.
Yeah,
No.
well, first of all, Margaret, a
2
number of my
days, 3
Republican
days?
colleagues
Absolutely
and
not.
Democrats, too, have worked on this issue. And I think there is a bipartisan solution
Absolutely
here because
not.
a lot of us care about this
No.
issue. I mean, look, I
Make
I
women
speak
mothers
from this
again.
very personally
And,
because I'm married to a beautiful woman
just get back to that
who's an
whole
incredible
thing.
mother to our 3 beautiful kids, but is also a very, very brilliant corporate litigator. And I'm so proud of her. But being a working mom, even for somebody with all of the advantages of my wife, is extraordinarily difficult. And it's not just difficult from a policy perspective. She actually had access to paid family leave because she worked for a bigger company. But the cultural pressure on young families and especially young women, I think makes it really hard for people to choose the family model they want. A lot of young women would like to go back to work immediately. Some would like to spend a little time home with the kids. Some would like to spend longer at home with the kids. We should have a family care model that makes choice possible. And I think this is a very important substantive difference between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris's approach. I mean, look, if you look at the federal programs that we have that support paid family leave right now, the Community Development Block Grant, and there's another block grant program that spends a lot of money from the federal government. These programs only go to one kind of child care model. Let's say you'd like your church maybe to help you out with child care. Maybe you live in a rural area or an urban area and you'd like to get together
Bob, how much is
with
child care
families in
right
your
now?
neighborhood to provide
$800 a kid a month or some shit like that, or a week. A week.
Are you kidding me? So like we actually found a pretty good one in town that's like $900 a month, but it's like half day.
Because
basically,
it's through the fucking roof. So mine is $1,600 right now.
So my full day childcare was $1,500 per child.
So mine is
God
mine is
damn.
hang on, mine is $1,600 for 3 days a week, Bob.
Yeah, that was 5 days a week.
Yeah.
By the way, that is.
We also live in Austin where this is bullshit. shit.
heck of a
Like,
lot better.
same with Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Senator,
So, like,
thank you.
It is also where you live and where you choose,
Senator
but where you
Vance,
choose to live. And,
many
like,
things about
I know that
the
I choose to live here and I
American
choose to live in
family.
Los
The Federal
Angeles.
Reserve
Both
says
of these cities are
parents
fucked. So,
will
like,
spend
Yeah, but
nearly as
even
much
in
on
smaller cities,
childcare
it's like
as they do
$600-800
on
a month.
housing.
And by the way, I live
Yeah.
in goddamn Dripping
So I want to
Springs.
get your
Yeah.
thoughts.
I'm not
on
even in the
this.
same county as Austin.
President
Now I understand it's
Trump
expensive,
recently said,
and my kid's childcare was
as
full
much
of
as
Teslas in the
childcare's
parking
talked
lot
about
and
as
shit like
being
that.
expensive,
You should have stole one of those
relatively
Teslas, dude.
speaking,
I know, right?
Those batteries are
not very
25K.
expensive
but they don't
compared
have
to the
enough
kinds of numbers we'll be
fucking
taking
centers
away.
or schools or all that
It
shit.
is.
So, like,
I am firmly of the belief it's got to be a supply issue. So if you're not going to do it with tax
They
credits,
can't get in. You gotta
Yeah.
submit 2 years in advance.
You're not going to do it with tax
Yeah.
credits, which I do support tax credits for now.
I
At
agree.
least as a
I agree.
band-aid. Then you need to, I guess, deregulate. But I don't love the idea of deregulating
slave laborers.
Like, what are you going to deregulate in childcare? Like, I don't want to just
Because you don't know who's with your children all
Well,
day.
here's a
It's gonna be fucking pedophile.
here's an idea.
Taxes for
How about we
American
don't
workers
take
and American
40% of people's
families.
money?
Cut taxes
And
for
send it to
citizens
fucking
that are
Ukraine.
hiring and building
That would
companies
help
in the
a
United
lot.
States
Then
of
mothers
America.
probably
Yes.
wouldn't be working in the
Penalize
first place.
100% agree.
and countries that are shipping jobs overseas. That's the heart of the economic
But childcare
proposal.
is
and I think
fucking
what President Trump
nuts,
is saying
dude.
is that when we bring in this additional
I
revenue,
mean, you could bring
with higher
every
economic
missile back
growth,
from
we're
Ukraine,
gonna
and it's
be
not
able
going to put
provide
$17,000
paid
in my
family
It would
childcare
certainly
options
help.
That are
It would
viable
help.
and workable.
But you know what I'm
for
saying?
a
Like, it's
lot
a
of
much
American
more
families.
pervasive issue than military spending. Like,
No, but
bringing back military
How
spending.
that
Like,
will
it's
solve the childcare
crazy.
shortage.
It's got to
Get
be
rid
supplied.
of
Well, because as
every
Tim
other
said,
fu-
a lot
like
of the
all
child
funding
care
for every other
shortages, we
country.
just don't
Like, I'm
have
done
enough
with it.
resources going into the
I still don't
It'll
think
help.
it would make a dent.
People
I really like
providing family care
$17,000
options.
per
And we're
family
gonna have
per
to-
child.
Look, if we're going to use like
we're gonna have
tax
to spend
revenue
more
and on
money.
blah, blah,
We're gonna
blah,
have
and
to
government
induce
influence to
more
do all this
people
shit,
to wanna
why don't we
provide
use tax
childcare
revenue,
options for
government
American
influence
families?
to
'Cause the
increase the
reason
amount
it's
of
so
mothers who are in
expensive right
homes
now
with their
is
own
because you've
children
got way
instead of
too few
depending on
people
creepy
providing this very
weirdos
essential service.
to come fucking parent your
Thank you,
kids at some
Senator.
fucking
Governor
brick
Walz,
building down the street.
your
That's
Also-
weird as hell.
also has
It's an
some
interesting
childcare
debate
tax credit
because
It is.
because
do you
if you
think
put,
Congress will agree
especially
to
because
a
the people who are paying for
$6,000 credit
childcare
for
are
newborns and
typically like
$3,000
higher
credit for
skilled
children over the age
workers,
of
like
6,
higher earning
as your
workers,
Yep.
right?
campaign
So if
has
you put
promised?
higher
Is that
earning
realistic?
workers back in the workforce
Well, if
quicker,
these members of
then that
Congress are listening
income
to anybody,
stays,
I
and then
can
that
tell
money
you
gets
The,
spent
the,
more.
the
and
women,
It's
the
biggest
gender
issue.
pay
Everybody
gap is
listening
almost
tonight knows.
entirely
I mean, I'm
women
sure they
leaving
were
the
shocked
workforce
to
for a
hear
time
it's not that
to have
expensive.
children
And let's be clear,
and
whether it's
raise them,
5,000 or
right?
6,000,
Like, it's
that leaves
mostly
about
that.
3 or
But
4
I'm in a
months.
household with
Let's be
both
clear
parents
where we're
work,
at
and
on
it's
this.
like, all right,
because we got
yeah.
out of an imbalance on this. We thought we were going to get by by not paying
my
for
wife
it.
does
I
not
don't
work right
think
now
Senator Vance
to
and I
help
are
with
part of
childcare
it.
expenses,
What he's talking
basically.
about on
Well, most of
options,
the
we've
women
done
I
scholarship types
knew
of things.
10
I
years
think we
ago
need to
that
be
had young
open to
kids,
making the case.
they were
But the
working
issue here is,
part-time
the question
jobs
you asked
just
is,
for
you're not going to pay for it with these
healthcare
tariffs.
to
That's
pay
just
for
adding
health
another
insurance,
4,000
right?
on the family,
This is after
making less.
Obamacare started,
So
and they
not
had
only
to go
do
get
they
health
not
insurance.
get the money
They were
to pay
forced
for
to go
that,
get
they're
jobs and shit like
$4,000
that.
in the hole. That's Wharton School.
Hang on a
That's
sec.
his alma
Okay.
mater. And so I think
Why do
the
they keep
issue
bringing up the
here
Wharton
is,
School?
I don't know.
those members of Congress,
It's
Trump
the
went
worst.
there
when I
like
go to
50
businesses,
years
we'll
ago.
talk about
No.
taxes sometime. But they
No, he
don't
did go
need
there.
child
Oh, I'm sorry. I
care.
thought
He
he
went
was,
to grad
I thought he was
there.
ripping on
No.
Vance's.
Trump went there like
No,
40 years
I know
ago,
Trump went
but
there. I thought he was
workers
ripping on
because our
Vance's
economy's
Yale.
growing, but we
I
need the
heard the
workforce.
wrong school.
Governor, thank you. We need to move on. Nora?
Let's talk about the state of democracy, the top issue
We're not a
for
democracy.
Americans after the economy and inflation. After the 2020 election, President Trump's campaign and others filed 62 lawsuits contesting the results. Judges, including those
democracy,
appointed
by the way,
by
isn't
President
number
Trump
3.
and other Republican presidents,
Economy,
looked at the evidence
immigration.
and said there was no widespread
3 is
fraud.
crime, probably.
The governors
Crime,
of
and
every
then,
state in the nation,
stop cutting kids' dicks off.
Republicans and
Would be 4
Democrats
for me.
certified
Get rid of
the
all this
2020
DEI
election
bullshit.
results
CRT,
and sent a
stop
legal
cutting kids' dicks
slate
off.
of electors to Congress.
I don't hear
for
any normal
January
people talk
6th.
about democracy
Senator
in real
Vance,
life. Like,
you
this
have
is
said you would
it's a
not
weird
have
talking
certified
point.
the last presidential election and would have asked the states to submit alternative electors. That has been called unconstitutional and illegal. Would you again seek to challenge this year's election results, even if every governor certifies the results? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, Nora, first of all, I think that we're focused on the future. We need to figure out how to solve the inflation crisis caused by Kamala Harris's policies, make housing affordable, make groceries affordable, and that's what we're focused on. But I want to answer your question because you did ask it. Look, what President Trump has said is that there were problems in 2020, and my own belief is that we should fight about those issues, debate those issues peacefully in the public square, and that's all I've said, and that's all that Donald Trump has said. Remember, he said that on January the 6th, the protesters ought to protest peacefully. And on January the 20th, what happened? Joe Biden became the president. Donald Trump left the White House, and now, of course, unfortunately, we have all of the negative policies that have come from the Harris-Biden administration. I believe that we actually do have a threat to democracy in this country, but unfortunately, it's not the threat to democracy that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to talk about.
Does J.D. Vance not know we're not a democracy?
Censorship. It's Americans casting aside lifelong friendships because of disagreements over politics. It's big technology companies silencing their fellow citizens, and it's Kamala Harris saying
we're silenced by this fucking bullshit. We're not a democracy.
She'd like to censor.
We're not. We're literally.
Our channel is fucking throttled to the fucking hill.
We are 100% not a democracy.
Republic is a subset of a democracy.
No, it's not. There hasn't been a direct democracy.
Bob, your liberal is showing you need to tuck it the fuck in and take it home.
There's been one direct democracy.
You need to tuck that liberal in and take it home with you, Bob. You're on the wrong fucking show.
There's been one direct democracy in the absolute history of the world. It was Greece in the 4th century BC. And it's not semantic. A democracy is where a bunch of people vote to put leaders in power and give those leaders unchecked power to govern over the country. A constitutional republic is when people vote to put leaders in power and they are bound by a constitution. That's the difference. It's not fucking semantic.
And freedom of speech, which you know, Bob, working here for 4 fucking years, we don't have on this goddamn channel.
Yeah, especially not
you. That
piece of shit. Fuck you.
Peacefully protest on January the 6th.
What else?
Governor?
Wait, what?
I think there was a lot of commonality.
Jesus Christ, dude! You have the numbers behind the scenes. You know what's going on here.
Well, that's not. We're not even talking about YouTube.
Fucking freedom of speech. No, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Motherfucker, we've got 88,000 people for 4 years. We got 2 views.
What does that have to do with democracy?
Democracy is letting everybody speak. It's freedom of speech. It's all this shit. We don't have it.
It's a private company.
We don't have it.
It's a private company.
So you're cool with it?
I'm not cool with it.
Well, technically,
when you're out of a job next year, Bob, this clip will be cut up and played on Instagram over and over and over again.
It's a publicly traded company, ABC,
and said we're marching
or
to the
Alphabet, or whatever the fuck they call it now.
Maybe casualties.
Technically,
I'm not cool with it, but it's not. You don't have a right necessarily on a private. I'm not cool with it, and the free market should solve that.
Well,
the free market,
but they're not solving it, Bob.
Well,
so who do you need to intervene? The federal government? You fucking communist.
Yes, the federal government has got to say, "Hey, dude, freedom of speech is freedom of speech."
No, but what
it's a fucking. It is not. It is not, Bob. And when you're out of a job next year, I want to fucking remind you of that.
How is the federal government going to intervene or not intervene when the federal government is literally paying the platforms to censor people?
Over and over and over again. We have the Twitter files. We have all of it.
I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying you can't claim freedom of speech in a private space. Now, if you want the Supreme Court to adjudicate that, and I think they should, and you impose a sort of town square model, but that has that been adjudicated in any way whatsoever?
Only for the, I guess, Section 230 for the internet, and then Ma Bell back in the day, but not really.
And that, by the way, has nothing to do with the form of government we live under. And again, all I'm saying is it's just a pedantic, semantic situation. The same way socialism.
Bob, I know you're a fucking liberal. I know you're going to vote Democrat. I know you love Walz. I know you love Harris.
I mean,
if you love your family and all that other shit,
none of that is the case.
It is.
He's just coming at you with
it is. It fucking is. Both you guys are liberal as shit. And like, dude, if this continues, the last 4 years for small businesses have been awful. You will both be out of jobs.
Gary, you better be careful. They're going to get you liberal if you sit there too long.
Is there any other media company that's paying you what you're getting now?
Here's the deal. Look,
shake hands after this debate.
This stuff has already been taken care of with Sherman antitrust laws. These companies should have been broken apart a long time ago, like years and years ago, and they are throttling people, and there is discrimination involved. And in Texas, we can legally sue. We can sue social media platforms.
I'm suing everybody.
This has been taken care of, and it is technically illegal at this point.
I haven't heard anything on this debate in like 20 minutes. No need. What are they even talking about now? Usually the back end of these debates is just bullshit.
Dude, like I said, Walz is getting like cooked.
Look at his face. Look at his face.
He sounds like a gym teacher. If he is a gym teacher, he sounds like a gym teacher.
No, what did he actually teach? Wasn't it history or some shit?
I feel like he was a coach, and so a coach doesn't teach anything real. You know what I mean? Like
revisionist history on this. Look, I don't understand how we got to this point. But the issue was that happened. Donald Trump.
Free Gary. A lot of people are asking to free Gary. Gary.
No, fuck Gary.
Gary's free.
Gary, well, he's as free as somebody like him deserves to be. Actually, that's not true. He deserves to be in prison, to be honest.
Threatening to do something. That's not.
Seen a lot of Bob's right.
Censorship is book banning.
Of what?
We've seen that.
We've seen the chat. I'm just recording what's on the chat.
everyone tonight. And
fire these clowns is what I just read. Did you read something different?
Bob is
Delco?
right. Bob loved the jersey.
And
oh
I
shit,
think there's a
Delco
lot of
chimed
agreement.
in.
This
Damn
is
it,
one
Bob.
that we are miles
Love you,
apart
Delco
on.
and Bob.
This was a
Get it,
threat to our
Gary.
democracy
Fire
in a
Gary,
way that we had
Bob.
not seen.
I'd probably be all right with that.
Because
Yeah.
of Donald Trump's inability to say he
Can't
is
watch a
still
baseball
saying
game with Gary.
He didn't
What the
lose the
fuck?
election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020
God, if you
election?
knew how hard it was
Tim,
behind the
I'm
scenes to run a
focused on
fucking
the
small
future.
business
Did
for the last
Kamala
4
Harris
years.
Dan K
versus
says
Trump,
Bob sits to piss. That's not good for you.
2020 COVID
Although
situation.
to make
That
Bob
is
wear a
damning-
Trump
that is a
hat,
damning non-answer.
1999.
It's a damning non-answer for you to
The
not
Make
talk
America
about
Great Again hats
censorship.
are like
Obviously,
made for
Donald
me.
Trump and I
It
think that there
speaks
were
to my
problems
white
in
soul.
2020.
Yeah.
Like it's just
We've
like
talked
I
about
own
it.
like 12 hats.
It's that and dock shoes and a fucking rugby sweater. Yeah, for sure.
For not believing in democracy,
Dan
the
need more
most
vacation
sacred
time.
right under the United States democracy is the First Amendment. You yourself have said there's no First Amendment right to misinformation. Kamala Harris wants to use the
threatening or
power
hate
of
speech.
government and big tech to silence people from speaking their minds.
Literally what I was just
That is
saying
a
for the
threat
last
to
15
democracy
minutes.
that will long outlive this present political moment. I would like Democrats and Republicans to both reject censorship. Let's persuade one another. Let's argue about ideas, and then let's come together afterwards.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater.
Ugh.
That's the test.
boy.
That's the Supreme Court test.
Literally.
Tim, fire in a crowded theater. You guys wanted to kick people off of Facebook for saying that toddlers shouldn't
Senator,
wear
the
masks.
governor does
That's
have the
not
floor.
Fire in a crowded theater. That is criticizing the policies of the government, which is the right of every American.
Senator, the governor does have the floor for 1 minute to
Please.
respond to you.
Yeah. Well, I don't run Facebook. What I do know is I see a candidate
federal
out there
government absolutely
who refused,
paid
and now
Facebook,
again, and this I'm
paid
pretty
to
shocked by
censor
this.
Republicans.
He lost the election. This is not a debate. It's not. It's not anything anywhere other than in Donald Trump's world. Because look, when Mike Pence made that decision to certify that election, that's why Mike Pence isn't on this stage. What I'm concerned about is where is the firewall with Donald Trump? Where is the firewall if he knows he could do anything, including taking an election, and his vice president's not going to stand to it? That's what we're asking you, America. Will you stand up? Will you keep your oath of office?
Vance can't certify an
even
election.
if the president doesn't. And I think Kamala Harris would agree.
It's not really a
She
valid
wouldn't have
question.
picked me
Unless
if
she's
she didn't
asking
think
for
I would do that.
2028.
Because of course that's what we would do.
Well, he
So
would be
America, I think you've
the guy
got a
running for
really
president
clear
then, though.
choice
Well, no,
on
but
this
he'd have to
election.
certify his own
certify,
election.
Who's gonna honor
Wait,
that
is that how that
democracy,
works? If
and
you're
who's
vice
gonna
president
honor
running,
Donald Trump?
oh god, that's
I believe
so.
so.
So that's
I'll
that's the
check that,
same
but I
as that
believe so.
Secretary of State shit
We
in
will
Arizona
be
last time.
right back with both of our candidates.
Yeah, both
the
Kemp
CBS
and
News
the
Vice
Arizona chick were
Presidential
secretaries of
debate
state when they ran for
That's
governor.
that's the state though, but is that like, does the VP of the country certify his own election if he's the one? Did George H.W. Bush certify his own election? That seems like a conflict.
Not sure.
Why wouldn't it be the speaker or something
But
like
here's
that?
why I'm so passionate about this. I sit in these fucking meetings every day. I just sat in one with Gary on Saturday. I was working on a fucking Saturday. Gary was here doing drugs somewhere. We sat in this fucking phone call. Remember, this motherfucker gave us a number for a person within Facebook and Instagram to call and pay in a separate account to get our fucking shit unthrottled. To get all this, oh man, you guys are known for posting disinformation. Tag Drinkin' Bros on Instagram right now. Tag at Drinkin' Bros Podcast.
Yeah.
It will tell you. These guys have been known to post misinformation for years. Would you still like to tag them?
These private companies fucking suck. Me and Bob lost our jobs because of it.
They're not private companies though. They're
They're
publicly
not.
traded.
They were at the time.
But and who's standing up for them? Who's paying them?
When did you get fired? Because Facebook went public
Facebook
in
had gone public at that point.
20. What was it? 14.
So it's
But
2016.
hold on, but a
16?
publicly traded company isn't beholden to.
They're beholden to the SEC, Bob. They're 100% beholden. Everything,
Yes.
every single thing they do is beholden to the
Zuckerberg
government.
went on Rogan, said he got threatened by the government over and over and over again. Elon Musk did. Like, all of these fucking guys did. We see what's happening behind the scenes. I can post a fucking screenshot. Try this at home. Go to Instagram. Just tag at Drinkin' Bros Podcast in any post you want. It'll ask you, are you sure you want to do this? These guys have been known to post disinformation.
But then, like, on the other hand, or on the other side of that debate, who exactly am I trusting to if it's the federal government that's telling Facebook to censor people, then what, is a different agency in the federal government going to tell them to stop? Like, what the fuck are we doing here? You know what I mean?
You got to open it up like a town square, and whatever happens, happens at that point. Like, yes, you want to block hate speech. You can't say the fucking N-word
No,
or
say whatever
fights or
say whatever you want.
fire in a theater.
Say whatever.
or-
No. Say whatever you want. If something's a crime, you can prosecute somebody for it. If it's not, give me the ability to block them because I don't want to see it. That's the end of the fucking conversation.
But we have the ability to block people now.
For now, because Twitter is ending that, actually. They're taking the block feature away soon.
They're taking block and mute away. Elon announced it, yeah.
Well, for the people to see it, right? So you can see it if you want to see it. If you don't want to see it, you don't want to fucking see it.
Which I like because I say faggot a lot on Twitter.
Sure.
And it gets blocked every single time.
Every single time.
And I've never said it to a gay person. I never would. Because, well, if they were being a faggot, I would. But not because they're gay.
But for you, it is an endearing term. And it's like, hey, dude, it's, you know.
There is a line, though, that all these companies. So let's just set a reasonable line, right? Like, I want to have a social media company. And I want people to be able to talk on it and post fun stuff, right? And then someone's like, well, my fun stuff is DP anal. So I would like to post DP anal videos on your social media site. And then the social media side is like, no, we don't want DP anal. So now it's not yes to everything, right? Now you start taking things off because they can set the standards of what they want on their platform.
But there is a law for that example. There is a law for pornography. It's got to be 18 and up.
But that's fairly arbitrary, don't you think?
I do, yeah.
It is what it is.
To be honest, but it's so is cigarettes at 18 or booze at 21,
but
right?
All these arbitrary lines are set. So once you start setting arbitrary lines...
But we've done it for years already.
You can't necessarily tell a company that is its own entity what is a right or wrong arbitrary line for their platform to set.
Well, Texas did.
Texas did.
And North Carolina did. I mean, it was a mistake, I think, but they definitely did it.
And then the government is telling who to censor for certain individuals. And we saw that with the Twitter files. We saw that with everything else.
The point is that the arbitrary lines are supposed to be dictated by the free market, right?
Yes. But how do you... I mean... If when a public or when a company goes public like that and then the SEC has jurisdiction over them, how do you even manage that situation at that point? I don't know the answer.
We are in a very new world of that. My point being, I agree with you. These companies are being fucking assholes, and there's a lot of antitrust bullshit. They're basically giant monopolies.
Maybe we should just whip their ass.
So, but take yesterday's show, for example, the fake news yesterday. We've blocked political ads on all of our shit. A listener hit us up and he said, hey, dude, there is a Project 2025 ad running before your show.
Like an anti-one?
We did not fucking promote that. We did not. I thanked the guy on Twitter. He was a listener of ours. I thanked him. You can go back to the debate now, but I thanked him because even all the shit that I blocked is in there.
The support of the democracy matters. It matters that you're here. And I'm as surprised as anybody of this coalition that Kamala Harris has built. From Bernie Sanders to Dick Cheney to Taylor Swift, and a whole bunch of folks in between there. And they don't all agree on everything.
Sound like a bunch of cunts to me.
They are truly optimistic people.
Bob, I sent you T-shirt pictures to the
They believe in a positive future of this country, and one where our politics can be better than it is. And I have to tell you,
freedom.
That better than it is the sense of optimism that there can be an opportunity economy that works for everyone, not just to get by, but to get ahead. And the idea that freedom really means something. Not the freedom of government to be in your bedroom or exam room, but the freedom for you to make choices about yourself. Now, look, we all know who Donald Trump is. He's told us, and as Maya Angelou said, believe him when he told you that. His first inaugural address talked about American carnage. And then he spent 4 years trying to maybe do that. Senator Vance tonight made it clear he will stand with Donald Trump's agenda. He will continue to push down that road. Excuse me. Kamala Harris gives us a different option. Now, I'll have to tell you, I'm going to be careful about the quotes, but there's one that Senator Vance said that does resonate with me. He said, Donald Trump makes the people I care about afraid. A lot of America feels that way. We don't need to be afraid. Franklin Roosevelt was right. All we have to fear is fear itself. Kamala Harris is bringing us a new way forward. She's bringing us a politics of joy. She's bringing real solutions for the middle class. And she's centering you at the heart of that. All the while asking everyone, join this movement, make your voices heard. Let's look for a new day where everybody gets that opportunity and everybody gets a chance to thrive. I humbly ask for your vote on November 5th for Kamala Harris.
Governor Walz, thank you. Senator Vance, your closing statement.
Why didn't he say me?
Well, I want to thank Governor Walz, you folks at CBS, and of course the American people for tuning in this evening. And one of the issues we didn't talk about was energy. And I remember when I was being raised by my grandmother, when she didn't have enough money to turn on the heat some nights because Ohio gets pretty cold at night and because money was often very tight. And I believe, as a person who wants to be your next vice president, that we are a rich and prosperous enough country where every American, whether they're rich or poor, ought to be able to turn on their heat in the middle of a cold winter night. That's gotten more difficult thanks to Kamala Harris's energy policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford a nice meal for your family. That's gotten harder because of Kamala Harris's policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford to buy a house. You ought to be able to live in safe neighborhoods. You ought to not have your communities flooded with fentanyl. And that, too, has gotten harder with because of Kamala Harris's policies. Now, I've been in politics long enough to do what Kamala Harris does when she stands before the American people and says that on day one, she's going to work on all these challenges I just listed. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. Day one was 1,400 days ago, and her policies have made these problems worse. Now, I believe that we have the most beautiful country in the world. I meet people on the campaign trail who can't afford food, but have the grace and generosity to ask me how I'm doing and to tell me they're praying for my family. What that has taught me is that we have the greatest country, the most beautiful country, the most incredible people anywhere in the world. But they're not going to be able to achieve their full dreams with the broken leadership that we have in Washington. They're not going to be able to live their American dream if we do the same thing that we've been doing for the last 3.5 years. We need change. We need a new direction. We need a president who has already done this once before and did it well. Please vote for Donald Trump. And whether you vote for me or vote for Tim Walz, I just want to say I'm so proud to be doing this, and I'm rooting for you. God bless you, and good night.
Senator Vance, thank you. And thank you both for participating in the only vice presidential debate of this election cycle. I'm Margaret Brennan.
And I'm Nora O'Donnell. And a reminder, there are just 35 days until Election Day. Please get out and vote. And for all of us here at CBS News, thank you and good night.
You can cut out of this now. So what are your thoughts here? I know what the media is going to say on this one, but yeah.
I mean, Vance is obviously quite a bit better at this than Walz is. Most of the facts, I would say, are on his side. There were some interesting intersection. I think there's a lot of, especially on housing, I think that most people agree that we've got a big problem with housing. The partisan folks are going to get caught up in a debate about who did what and blah, blah, blah. And look, there's some justification for that because rooting out the cause of a problem is a good way to solve it. But the solution, this is basic market economics. The best solution to rising costs in an industry is to produce more of that thing. Mm-hmm. Supply, demand. I mean, it's fucking simple, right? Build more houses. Now, how you do that? Now you can start talking about these other downstream issues like energy, which they didn't even fucking talk about. Gas prices are up 56% in this country. Energy costs totally, right? Are up 56%. That means that usually about 40% of that is passed on to the consumer. So you're talking about, what is that, 28%, give or take, or that would be 50. So 24%. 24% higher costs on everything that gets shipped because of gas. Mm-hmm. That's fucking crazy, right? So I feel like they intentionally probably dodged that energy thing. They didn't talk about food costs. Like the moderators didn't bring that shit up. No. Energy and food costs. Those are two things that are most affecting Americans right now. Energy and food. Energy and food. Energy and food. Those are two things you need to stay alive, right? It's why they removed them from this new calculation of inflation. They never brought it up because they know that Walz loses on those issues. I thought Vance did a great job. The thing he could have done better was to make that connection linearly, right? When they started talking about immigrant housing, blah, 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 said, look, fuck all that. And he did mention it. He did mention that energy costs are leading to that stuff. I think he should have hammered that home more. But otherwise, pretty flawless execution from him. On Walz's side, that China thing was fucking weird. That was very weird. I don't know that he was anticipating being asked about that maybe because there wasn't a good answer. And I don't know if there's anything going on with that or not. We'll talk more about it on Thursday, but he's not a good debater. And again, like you said, which is what I thought coming into this, he's kind of like, he's a relief pitcher coming in with the bases loaded. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I think he did an okay job based on what he was given, frankly.
Now he's not given much.
No,
the last 4 years have been a shit show.
He's a total fucking Marxist retard, and he's also a coward who abandoned his men before what would have been his only fucking deployment to an overseas location.
Which they didn't bring up.
No, they didn't, but he is a piece of shit as a human being. However, just for the sake of this particular debate, I thought he did okay. I mean, given the conditions.
Well, what are you going to do, right? So you've had 4 years of a fucking disaster versus the other 4 years that was pretty successful for everybody in America. Yeah, dude. And then he's got to be the VP for maybe the dumbest person on the face of the fucking planet who's been unburdened by what has been done.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can really do about that.
Well, I mean, yeah. If
you're starting with 2 outs, and there's nothing you can do for him.
Yeah.
So, yes, I have sympathy for him in that regard.
But then my sympathy immediately goes away. One, when I remember he's an absolute Marxist and a coward. And then two, that other people, Whitmer and Shapiro, were smart enough to say no.
Yeah.
Right?
To
Harris, yeah. They said no. And I'm like, all right, cool. Well, my sympathy is run out for you then.
And for me, I'm out of fucking patience with this whole goddamn presidential thing, altogether. The last 4 years has been a fucking nightmare. To try to run a small business, employ people who are in the middle class and everything else was awful. And guess what? It was awful under Bush as well. And I have no fucking problem throwing him under the fucking bus either. And why people can't admit that. And then instead, with the closing statement again, but it's joy. Joy of what? Joy means I don't have to look at my bank account. Joy means I don't have to care about my grocery bills. Joy means I can drive by a fucking gas station and know that it's under $3.50 a fucking gallon. That's joy to me. This other shit that you're pulling out of the air of joy doesn't fucking exist. And the problem is the policies are dog shit. Same with Bush. I don't care that I'm a Republican. And I'll throw Bush under the fucking bus. It was awful. I ran a small business then. It fucking gutted us. It gutted us back then. 07 and 08 was fucking impossible. Impossible. The same way 20 through 24 has been impossible now. And I got to look at the fucking bank account every single day to worry that I can pay employees for Hard AF Seltzer. The goddamn energy prices over and over again. It drives up the price of all of our goods. We don't want to charge this fucking price at all. But that's the demands. We don't have a choice. Nobody has a choice in this current economy. But we do have a choice when it comes to voting for the President of the United States. 16 through 20 was great financially. I don't give a fuck that you hate his mean tweets. I don't give a shit if you don't like the way he says things or the way he's mean to other people. What he's shown is we didn't go into wars. When there was a shot to take out somebody, great, he dropped one fucking bomb and got rid of them. And I truly believe that this bullshit with Ukraine and giving money to them, giving money to Israel would have never fucking happened in the first place if he was still in there. And that's why I'm so fucking pissed off about this current election. You were there for 4 years, Kamala. You were fucking there. You want to sign an executive order with Joe Biden? You could sit down with him tomorrow and say, shut down the border.
I guess the question is, who's more at fault here? Biden for not caring about America.
But does he not care? Does he not know?
Well, either way, is that worse? Or is it worse that she doesn't have enough clout to walk down the hall and say, hey, Joe, the country's fucked up. Please do this. Which one's where you're asking a woman, you're asking a woman who can't convince Joe Biden to make very simple changes that would protect America from existential threats. She can't walk down the hall and ask for that and say, hey, it's going to also help us get elected. He was willing to step out of the fucking presidency, to stop running for president, to help America, to save America, right? But he's not willing to take her advice and do something she wants. This idea that you can fucking pretend you're not in some way culpable of what's happened for the last 3.5 years, especially after you were absolutely named the border czar, that is the problem. It might be the weakest defense of any presidential candidate I've ever seen in my life, honestly. That's the weakest shit I've ever heard of. Because what you're effectively doing is blaming the guy that obviously has vascular dementia, right? You're blaming him. That was all the old man's fault. I had nothing to do with that. You can't convince an old man to save the fucking country from goddamn illegal immigrants, from Iran, from China. Really? Really? That's you're telling me that you're going to convince Congress to pass bills, right, to support your fucking agenda. You're going to do that. You're going to convince world leaders not to attack each other or fuck with our economy, but you can't convince one old man to sign an executive order to shut the fucking border down. Sorry, I don't believe that.
I don't get it. And so, like, when I hear all of this shit and I go through this, like, tonight with the VP debate, do I think Vance won? Yes. He's a fucking lawyer. This guy, again, I'll say what I said during the last commercial break. Plucked out of nowhere 60 days ago. Seems like a decent enough fucking guy. But the hand he was dealt was a shitty 4 years. That has probably been the worst in our history since Carter. And Carter finally outlived him. So, you know, good on him, you know, for Jimmy.
Well, that's the next one. Jimmy's birthday is today, so happy birthday, Jimmy.
A hundo.
Now we're going to see. I think we should start taking bets on if Jimmy outlasts Joe.
Oh,
That's the next thing that I want to see.
That's another body for Jimmy.
Questionably.
Bob, did you play the video of him being wheelchaired around?
Yeah, play this now for his 100th.
My buddy Jeremy Stamper fucking posted it just a few
I know where it is. So by the way, but we had a theory earlier. It might have been off mic actually that the reason so many celebrities are dying is because to get to 100, Jimmy requires souls.
Oh shit!
And you gotta snatch him.
You think he's been fucking Highlandering people?
Yes.
Yeah.
Jimmy,
that's actually what's leading
this is the one right here. Have you seen this?
I sent this to Bob, so go ahead and can play this. This is Jimmy now, and this is how he celebrated his 100th birthday.
He looks great, and the reason his mouth is open is because he's swallowing those souls.
So, sure.
He is literally just the fucking worm from SpongeBob
in the wheelchair.
There he is.
Good
they put a hat on him, which is nice.
Let me tell you something, folks. If you ever see me in any way looking like this, just walk up and put a bullet right in my brain.
No, have sex with him.
Or have sex with me, yeah. I mean, it's one of the two. God damn it, dude. This looks like remember when they...
Wait, if you pause it right there, you can see John Amos's soul flying into his mouth.
Yeah. You can see Taggart. You can see...
he just died. No, John Amos just died today.
Yeah. I know. That's what I'm saying. You can see Dikembe Mutombo. You can see Pete Rose. All of those souls are being sucked into Jimmy's mouth.
What would you do if Jimmy stood up right now and just did this?
Oh,
not my house. Not my house.
When you nut, but she keeps sucking right there.
Yeah, right there.
Oh, man.
Oh, God damn it, dude. There's kids around and all this other shit. That's the last memory you want.
Come break a chunk off of Pawpaw.
Oh, my God.
He's going to be dead soon. You'll take that chunk home with you.
Take a finger home with you. Break off a finger here.
What in the absolute fuck is going on there? Bob, pull those pictures up I sent to Drinkin Bros GM. We're gonna do some democracy right quick.
Is it real democracy?
There's two fucking versions that Brandon sent me, and it's an American flag butt plug with "Make America Anal."
Make America Anal again.
So that's one of them.
Okay, there's one. Not bad. I'd like to see a different font there, Brandon. Something more fun and flirty.
The second one is below it. Scroll down. There you go.
MAA.
But there's no periods, Brandon. If you're still watching, if not, I'll text this to you. But there's no periods in MAGA.
I think though he didn't want it to say "ma" and then a butt.
I think just spell the whole thing out. Make America anal again. Make America over on the top and then anal again on the bottom of this design, probably, right?
And then if you take a picture of yourself out in public with this shirt on, we'll give you a free case of hard ass seltzer.
Yeah,
okay?
100%.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it. But in all sincerity, look, Walz was dealt a terrible hand for the last 4 years. He did what he could. There's nothing you can do about this.
Also, don't give him too much credit. Like, he is a governor of a safe blue state, right?
Very small number in population as well. Like, it's not a big state. It's not California. It's not Texas.
It's not, but it's not tiny. I think it's got like double-digit electoral votes, maybe 9 electoral votes. It's got a major city, but like, but he's in a safe blue state, and also like, he's clearly just not that bright.
Yeah, no, he's kind of he's what you expect for a high school gym teacher. Yeah, 100%. He's probably look, to be honest, he could probably hit a bunch of free throws in a row.
He probably could, and honestly, I bet you he's a cool teacher to have. Like, genuinely, I bet he's like, oh, cool, Mr. Walz, whatever.
Yeah, if you get caught fucking in the back room, he's like, you kids.
Yeah, let me watch it.
You kids.
Let me watch it.
He pulls out a Sony Handycam from 2007.
Let me watch it. You guys are kids.
I don't know if he's a pedophile or not.
I have no idea. But, as far as the rest of this is concerned, what are we, 34 days away from the election now at this point?
Yeah, 35, I think.
Like, in all sincerity, I don't give a fuck that Trump is a fucking asshole. Every leader of a company is a goddamn asshole, probably myself included. To be honest with you, that's the only way you could fucking go forward. I don't know anybody who's nice that has gone on.
I thought you were being pretty mean to me earlier.
That's true.
I probably was, Bob.
You're
but
real-
guess
you're a
what,
real
dude?
jerk.
Like sitting behind the scenes for two companies, dude, over and over and over again, fighting these people, and I'm hearing the same thing from everybody else who's late on invoices and everything else, inflation, the gas and the thing. And it was like, cool, man, but who are you voting for? And they're like, well, you know, some of them, half of them, because unfortunately we still are in Hollywood, whether we like it or not with podcasts. Half of these agencies are like liberal as fuck, and they're like, well, you know, it's the economy, and it's just the way things are right now. And it's like, cool, man, but who are you voting for? And then they're saying the same fucking party. It's like, dude, you're late on payments. That means you can't collect. We can't collect. No one can collect because joy, that's it. Like, I need a better fucking answer than that. That's it, man. And like, I don't give a shit who it is. In my lifetime, there's been 2 presidents financially that have rocked, and we haven't been in any fucking wars. Clinton and Trump. No problem admitting that. A Democrat and a Republican for 2 entirely different reasons.
You could, however, make the case, and I have in several papers I've written, that the Clinton administration 100% set up the conditions for Osama bin Laden to fly planes into our buildings.
Maybe, but I don't. But that part I don't know.
I know for a fact about
but
that.
But as a civilian,
yeah.
I have no idea.
But
right?
the other issue is that the CIA also did it on purpose.
And the CIA probably killed JFK, right?
They definitely killed JFK. Yes. Yeah.
So,
I mean, how much can you really blame Clinton for that? You know?
Right. So if you're looking at it from an asshole standpoint, no, dude. I'm telling you, the 2 best in my lifetime was Bill Clinton and fucking Trump.
So here's what we know. Here's what we can glean from that. Then, the best presidents fuck chicks that aren't their wives.
Yes, and that's gonna happen.
JFK, fucking Clinton,
Vince McMahon,
Trump. Well,
I just watched that.
He wasn't,
doc, dude.
He wasn't president.
He should be.
But I would say
you create $1 billion enterprise and shit on someone's head.
Yeah. I don't know. There's no causation, but there's 100% correlation between being a gross piece of shit with women and being a good president. 100% on that.
Forever, right?
Well,
Forever.
at least since JFK.
JFK.
And who was? Wait, I guess.
No. Go back to FDR.
FDR
was
FDR
fucking
was a turd
homegirl.
too,
He was getting handies in the wheelchair.
Yeah, that
and warm
motherfucker
sprays.
couldn't even walk. He was giving people the pinky. You know what I mean?
Same with Hawking. Hawking left his wife of 37 years in a fucking wheelchair
for the nurse
and said, you know what? I have to leave.
I guess the one outlier might have been LBJ. He wasn't a great president. And he used to throw jumbo on the table a lot.
Yeah, but he didn't put it in anyone. He was just waving it around.
That's fair, yeah. Fair enough.
I mean, if you want to go really far back, TJ.
Yeah,
Thomas
he
Jefferson.
was banging.
Slaves.
Between TJ and Ben Franklin, they fucked half of Europe.
Yeah.
Like, for real.
Yeah.
Like, Ben Franklin was over there just slaying old ass in France. Like, oh my God. You could smell it.
I can taste it now. It's in my mouth right now. I can taste it.
It sort of just echoes through the ages.
Boy.
But in all sincerity, dude, as long as everybody's doing well financially, crime is down, immigration's down, all that other shit, like, I don't care if it's Clinton or Trump. What I know is this. We had 4 years of Trump versus 4 years of this bullshit. Everything that Vance kept going back to tonight was like, dude, you had the last 4 years. I don't want to hear about what you're going to do on day one. You can do it right now. It's totally fucking true. And how you can keep voting for this shit is fucking insane to me. Look, if Trump sucked, I'd tell him to get the fuck out of there. Like, fuck. Bush sucked. Get him out of there. Problem was, who ran after him on the Republican side?
John McCain. Yeah.
And who did he pick as VP? Sarah Palin? That's not a great idea.
No, she's boy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. She was something else.
I think that was the only election I sat out and just didn't vote, where I was just like, what the fuck are we doing here?
Yeah, I don't think I voted in that one.
I don't either. And the other part, too, was like, I wanted to see what the hype was about. Like, in 2008, I was living in Los Angeles. I went to the Obama rally. Same thing I went to Trump in 2016. It was identical. Electric. 50,000 people. People were going nuts and everything else. It was an easy call. And then this old fucking man with, he picked off a governor, what was very similar to Walz, actually. What was it, 90 days before?
Who are you talking about?
Palin. Didn't he get Palin like 90 days before the fucking thing?
Well, I mean, it was after the convention, right? They didn't have a VP at the convention, I think.
I don't think they did.
Because it was after the first debate. He got crushed and then he picked her or something.
It was a weird Hail Mary.
It was weird, yeah.
To be fair, McCain got murdered in that election.
Yeah, he wasn't going to win no matter what.
But he got murdered because of Bush. Like,
yes.
No, you can't have 8 years of Bush, and then nobody was voting Republican. And I know because I got relatives who were running for governor at that time. in another states.
But also Obama was wild. Like Obama had no record to defend because he had only been
Same with Trump.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He had only been in politics for like 6 years at that point.
And he had voted against the Iraq War, which was a huge deal. At the
That was
time.
that was the only thing that mattered. Really.
Yes. And so like it's not that, hey dude, it's fucking Republicans awesome, all this shit. It's just looking at what happened during these 4 years versus the last 4 years, and that's it. That's it for me as a fucking voter. And like, I don't know how to run companies under another 4 years of this shit. The regulations are awful. The IRS hiring 85,000 people has been fucking miserable. So I've been audited twice. My father just got audited. He's 71 years old. Talked about him the other day on the other show. 71 years old. He's getting audited for something in 2020, and it's this fucking administration. It sucks, dude. Like, none of this should fucking exist right now. We have a chance to change it. Go back and then figure it the fuck out, and then see how good Trump is. The first 4 years were great. Let's see if he can repeat it again. So we'll see. Either way, this is the only fucking vice presidential debate we will get. There will be no more presidential debates at all.
No, and the vice presidential debates historically have not meant really.
They don't mean anything.
This one could.
You think so?
Yeah, because of Harris's perceived lack of expertise and statesmanship, right? I think people have looked to Walz. I don't think Vance matters that much. I think Walz matters a lot. And maybe I do think this debate did one thing, which is Vance rather has a bad reputation with people on the left because of some of his interactions with the press over the last couple of months. And I think this probably smoothed some of that out, or it would allow for it to have been smoothed out if they were open to that. Most people aren't open to it, frankly. But
I think a huge problem so he kind of touched on this a little bit with abortion, like, oh, they don't trust us on abortion or whatever, which they don't. But I think a huge problem with a lot of centrist and maybe like center-left voters is that a lot of the Republicans lately, Trump included, have seemed fucking crazy. Like, you get like the Herschel Walkers and the Mark Robinsons, like people you don't want to speak to. You know what I mean? Like, someone, if you heard them speaking, you would walk away. You would not want to interact with someone because they seem fucking weird.
Yeah. Vance is kind of maturing in front of our eyes because he went, like 2 years ago, he was very abrasive and fuck you, this is my opinion. And now he's getting kicked out of Primanti Brothers and saying, don't stop eating Primanti Brothers. She was just nervous about having a big crowd in there and blah, blah, blah.
Which wasn't true, and he stood up for them.
Fine, but she doesn't own that place.
I know.
Primanti Brothers isn't like that.
But it was a very nice movie, and one of his exact phrases in that speech was, don't kill a small business.
Yeah.
He said, don't kill a small business by boycotting it.
Yeah.
And yes.
Vance sounds like someone who's like, let's go back to pre-Trump times. He just sounds like someone who's your Republican friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like your normal Republican friend who's like, oh, he believes this, I believe this. Like he's normal.
And like we said, I believe Vance, if he was on the head of the ticket right now,
he's up 10 points.
That's been
all I care about though is the results. And like the results I got from 2016 to 2020, me personally and everybody else, were great.
It's been a common refrain.
I don't care.
It's been a common refrain on Twitter tonight that the phrase, this might be surprising, but I like Vance more than Trump now. I've read that a dozen or so times.
So that's not surprising to me, though. It's not.
No.
Because Vance is a lawyer. He's a trial lawyer. You saw it tonight. You saw it on stage tonight. He's used to speaking in front of crowds. Here's what Trump is used to. Calling people into a boardroom and then either firing them or giving them raises. And when I went to the fucking White House 2.5 years ago, whatever, I said, because I asked the aides, a lot of them were there from the first term and everything else, and I said, what was the biggest difference and why did Trump come off as so fucking abrasive and everything else? And they go, you know why he was so pissed off all the time? Is that everything is so far away that he couldn't call a board meeting like he could in New York for a normal fucking business on a daily basis. And every day was a fucking fight, and he couldn't mentally get over that.
Yeah.
I couldn't either.
That was one of the fucking most fantastical parts of that series, The West Wing. I'm sure you've seen it, right? There are a couple of times.
I actually never saw it.
I think the first 5 seasons, Martin Sheen's character is president or running for president or whatever. And there's a couple of occasions during those first 5 seasons where he's like, they're trying to get a bill passed. It's going back and forth. He goes, get everybody in my office. Get them in the Oval. Yep. And he's like, hey, we're going to get it passed. And like, okay, Mr. President. That fucking doesn't happen.
Does not happen.
Like, fuck off. Maybe
you're 2 miles away.
Maybe Reagan and Tip O'Neill did that a couple times, but that's not been the case since, let's say, Newt Gingrich.
Yeah, I was going to say
Speaker of the House.
96.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's not a Republican or a Democrat
I
thing.
think that was 94 when he became Speaker.
I'm not blaming either party. That's the way they're currently set up, and it fucking sucks.
Yeah, they're all cunts.
They don't. But here's the other part too: is like going and eating with them on different days and whatever. Like you eat with the RNC, and it's all Republicans. The next day you eat with the DNC, it's all Democrats. Like they never even eat together.
Yeah.
They never join together. If you go to an outside restaurant that is not on Capitol Hill, you're segregated by who your friends are in a mask, like at least when I was there. So you knew who was a Democrat, who was a Republican by who was wearing a mask and who wasn't. And that's all bullshit too. Force all of these motherfuckers, Congress, Senate, everybody, into a room.
I think you should have to have a buddy. You should have to have a buddy. You have to be linked up with one person from the other party, and you guys have to eat lunch together every day.
Yes.
McCain and Biden were like bros in the Senate.
Yeah. And then they tried to do it. And the problem with Biden was he got fucking old. And he got dementia and all that other shit. Everything we said in 2019, and he just wasn't capable to do it. But you have to. You have to go back to that. The problem is we're way past that, and it's not going to fucking happen. And that's what sucks. Because if you're going to really try to pass bipartisan shit, and we heard it tonight with the border bill, where it was just like, oh man, if Trump would have done this and with the border bill and everything else, you can't jam Ukraine in there, you can't jam Israel funding in there, you can't jam all this extra shit in there and then call it the fucking border bill. Same way with the Inflation Reduction Act. You can't say all that, and then it's about climate change. It had nothing to do with inflation. It was simply about climate change. That's it. Now on climate change, we'll go back to the top of this debate because I think it was the second question that was asked, even though that's like fifth on people's lists right now. Probably abortion's number 2 on that one, as opposed to like immigration and fucking economy and all that other shit. With that, you can't go back to it and say, all right, great. What are we going to do at this point? It was like, well, we can do this. Can't. You can't fucking do it, and it sucks. Like, you can't get all these fucking people in a room. You can't get them to have a decent conversation. You can't get them to agree on anything. And you can't pass a single bill without 19 other things being in it. And that's what else sucks. And, like, that should be against the law. I've said this on the show forever, where it's just like, hey, dude, if we're voting on inflation, just be about inflation. If we're voting on Ukraine, just be about Ukraine or Israel, whatever the fuck it is. But unfortunately, it's where we are in our country. So the next election matters, and here we are, and I've had 90 of these tonight because of Homegirl. She said, God damn it, how many times did she cut off Vance tonight?
I don't know. I thought it was because of Bob.
No, it was simply because of Nora O'Donnell, who just kept saying, we're gonna fucking do this, and I had to take a drink, so whatever. Either way, we appreciate you tuning in. Are these t-shirts actually available, by the way?
It will be. It'll be, hold on, Make America Anal Again. Hang on a sec. Let me send this to Bob right quick. We'll throw this one up on screen really quick before we go.
Okay.
Link.
A lot of people in the chat are saying end racism tonight.
We're not doing that.
No, we're not. No,
I'm a big fan of racism.
Same.
I think it's good for the country. So.
I would prefer the free market to decide whether or not.
Free market racism.
Hey, the free market has decided, dude. If you're Asian or Indian, I want you as my doctors and everything else. And dude, I have no problem.
Somebody sent me a fucking
nixing out white people from a lot of jobs. Somebody, no problem with
somebody sent me a fucking video from Mr. Bean back in the '80s today. And he was like, yeah, all the immigrants, they're Indian and Pakistani, and yeah, I love curry, but now that we got the recipe, do we really need them here?
No. It's all kind of done, but Indians shifted, dude. They were doctors and everything.
Oh yeah,
else.
I'm
So
good
like,
with
hey,
Indians.
dude.
Yeah,
dude.
I also want to know your politics for your job, right? Like if you're a surgeon, I need a Republican. If you're a car mechanic, I need you to be a Republican.
Yeah. What jobs do you want to be Democrats?
Like
Librarian or something?
Psychiatrist or something? I don't know.
I don't know. Then they're going to try to get you to cut your dick off, though.
Yeah.
You got to be careful, dude.
Yeah.
Throw the shirt up there.
What do we got?
What do you think of this one?
Make America Anal Again. Why not?
I think that's the one.
We've had a ton of drinks tonight. Who cares? Yeah, sell it. Sell on the fucking site, dude.
All right,
we can
Brandon,
do whatever we want.
we're good.
As long as it's not on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. What are the other social media platforms we're fucked on?
Any of them, except for Twitter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of it, right?
I think we're okay for now on TikTok. I've never used it personally, but I'm told
we're not.
We haven't been banned in a month.
Well, in a month,
demonetized in like 30 seconds. Actually, no, we did. I think it maybe deleted on TikTok or something like that.
Well, TikTok's
we've
so
been
easy to get deleted.
Our account has been banned on TikTok, deleted on TikTok, whatever it is.
A million times.
Like 6 or 7 times now, I think. I don't even know.
You said the word sex, you're out.
Yeah.
Is sex it?
That shirt's live. Bob, go to drinkingbros.com. Let's make sure.
Go.
that
Make
Brandon's
America
doing his
anal
job.
again?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that this is
Brandon
actually
Icker, this is on you. If it's not on the site,
no, go
you're
to
fired. We got
go
some
back
problems.
and then go to new. The
Yeah, go to
easiest
new.
way to do this, Bob, is scroll right there and click new apparel. It's always the
Apparel,
new
boom.
stuff. There you go.
Oh, look at that.
Boom.
Brandon.
Nailed it.
Brandon Icker.
Yeah,
Look
you can
at
get that.
dude.
Wear that to your grandma's
Now,
funeral.
I will.
if
Wear
you-
it to your
love
grandmother's
it.
funeral and
I
let
would love
everybody
it.
know that you support American buttholes.
That's
If
it.
you don't remember the context of this, what it was we were talking about how abortion had been falling off a cliff in terms of rates because teen pregnancy had been falling off a cliff because of rates because anal is pretty popular now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everybody's eating. So the generation that started the whole ass eating trend has the lowest rate of teen pregnancy. You think that's a fucking mistake? That's called evolution.
Is it?
Yeah, we're making progress as a country. We're
I hope
healing.
so.
Nature is healing, actually.
Well, yeah, we're all healing.
And it is October 1st, which means it's ass eating season today.
Sure is. Sure is.
Man, this couldn't have happened to in a better way for us.
No.
Honestly. This all kind of like this lined up.
And we got like 3 October surprises.
The
today.
universe.
Yeah,
The
we
universe
got
lined up.
Iran bombing. We got Carter at a Hondo, and now we have this.
I would
So
not.
that's
I
great.
don't personally classify Jimmy Carter turning 100 as a surprise. So
I do. I definitely do.
It's a cinch. It's a slam dunk.
Wheeling him through the fucking fields with the whole goddamn family like that is nuts to me.
That's one of the weirdest things I've
God
seen.
damn it,
You know
dude.
what it reminded me of is
gonna
when
haunt my dreams.
When John Paul died and they fucking wheeled him through Rome.
Yeah.
That's what it looked. In that casket that has the glass over it or
So you
whatever
could
the
see
fuck.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god, dude.
That's Jimmy right now. How many fucking bumblebees went in his mouth?
Do you think they're gonna have like a fucking peanut shaped casket for him?
I'm not sure.
I mean that.
We brought this up on Ross Patterson Revolution earlier today. You know he flew in Peanut One.
What?
I'm not kidding. He
What
changed
the
the name
fuck?
of the plane. Bring up Peanut One. Show Dan the Peanut One, dude. He got the logo changed.
Wait, did you find a peanut casket?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh
Yeah.
man,
Look at
that
that.
up
Put
there.
that up on screen.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Do you want
I want to see it all.
M&M
Bob.
casket?
No.
No, we want it's
No.
Jimmy. It's
Yeah.
Jimmy, dude. Jimmy, put the fucking peanut.
He
up
doesn't
there.
need chocolate. He's sweet
There
enough.
he is. Look at that. Look at that,
Oh man,
dude.
this is definitely in Africa.
Sure is.
Yeah.
Sure is, dude. Look at that.
Do you roast
It
it?
kind of looks like they welded somebody inside that thing.
Yeah.
Actually. I think this might be a serial killer.
There's a
Bob.
body in there for sure right now. Oh boy, but Jimmy, yeah, they're wheeling him through the field, mouth wide open, with mouth wide open. It's not great.
Anyway, show me Peanut One.
Peanut One, give him Peanut One.
I mean, it's just Air Force One, but he just
But
called it.
no, he's got a whole thing, dude. It's Peanut One. Look at that. Show the picture of the
No,
audience.
yeah, it's his own plane.
Look at that.
So what would Trump put on the side of Air Force One if
Well,
he was going to do something like this?
He did Trump, so it just says Trump on it. We've seen that plane.
That's his own plane, though.
Oh, it's not.
That's
I
not
didn't
Air
know.
Force One.
Okay,
No, that's
gotcha.
not Air Force One. That's his own plane.
So Peanut One, they let him do this.
I think Trump should just draw a dick on the side of Air Force One.
Great if he did.
It's like it's a dick, like a dolphin, and it's jumping over something. It's jumping over.
Yeah, a quintet of dolphins jumping over a rainbow.
Well, they're dick dolphins.
dick dolphins. I want to see 4 dicks jumping over a rainbow.
I think
Brandon, go ahead and make that too. 4 dicks jumping over a rainbow.
Yeah,
I think
they're
Trump
dolphins.
Trump would keep it classy. Call it something like Big Mac. Just
no,
ode to his McDonald's.
He
love.
would fucking just paint it gold.
He
That's
did do
it.
that Big Mac commercial back in the day.
He did Pizza Hut too. By the way,
The stuffed crust, yeah.
huge fan of both, dude. Huge.
Stuffed crust pizza.
fan of
Actually, that'll be our next live show. Let's get some Pizza Hut stuffed crust in here.
We'll make
both. Down.
some.
There's a Pizza
We've
Hut
got
down
stuffed
the street.
crust pizza at home, Bob.
No, there's a Pizza Hut down the street, dude. I'll
Wait, is there
support
really?
local business. Yeah. Yes,
Well,
it's right at
Pizza
the Y.
Hut's not a local business.
Right at the Y.
We should
well,
do
for us.
an entire
For us.
homage to Trump and just get like 12 different fast food.
Just like he did when
Yeah,
Clemson won the
Clemson.
fucking natty, dude.
Yeah.
He had McDonald's, KFC, Pizza Hut. What else?
And look at what happened to Clemson afterwards.
They went downhill pretty
They
rapidly.
haven't won ever
Yeah,
since.
I believe
dude.
that was Trevor Lawrence's team. It might
Yeah,
have.
it was. Yeah, it wasn't Deshaun Watson. Otherwise, it would have been baby oil.
Yeah, dude. So that's on him. That's on him.
So if you're a Clemson fan out there, maybe vote for Kamala Harris. I guess I don't know.
I guess if
I don't
you
know what
want to,
tell you.
that's fine. That's South Carolina. You know, that's in South Carolina.
Yeah.
You do whatever you want down there.
It's not going to make a difference there.
We appreciate you tuning in, kids. Yes, it's going to get heated for the next 34 days, for sure. Fuck, dude. It's been a struggle for the last 4 fucking years, dude, and I don't want to hear about it anymore. I don't want to hear about joy or anything else. results, all I give a fuck about. I don't care how mean Trump was. I don't give a shit at all. Just results, and we'll find out in 34 days, and I can't wait till it's over. However, if you're coming out to the election show, we are live downtown at WTF November 5th. Hard AF Seltzer will be on tap. We got a ton of celebrity guests coming to town. Trump's lawyer is actually going to be on the show that night.
And then there's a decent chance, I got to confirm this just for legal reasons, that Kangaroo will be in the audience as well.
So I've heard that. Is that, is it Zeus?
It's Zeus, yeah.
Yeah.
And he said, like, hey, it's kind of biting people now, but I'm going to bring him anyways. That's what he said.
Well, we rented the place out for the night.
Yeah.
So why can't we have a live Kangaroo walking through the whole?
And also, we're going to sell tickets to it, but not to make money, just because the last time we did this in 2020, people started showing up late. We try to do Eventbrite, just to try, because they have the fire marshal will come shut them down.
Yes,
it's a fucking private business. Our friends own it. We're not going to fuck them over. So we're gonna have to sell some small.
It'll be like $5,
like small, a small cost,
dumb.
and we'll give it to charity. So it's just to track who's actually got tickets to come in.
Correct. Because last time
it was a shit show.
Well, there was so many fucking people who were ready to party because it was in the height of COVID.
Yeah.
We had Alex Jones on that night, and there was a ton of people. Yeah, we got wrecked. There's a ton of people in downtown Austin who just saw a huge party going on, and they were like, "Yo, I want in," and it was like, "All right, cool." So we will release those.
If it's a ticketed event, only Drinkin' Bros will be there.
Yeah, that's it.
So you guys can get in.
We'll put it like $5 or something stupid, whatever their minimum is. So that way we know what it is, and then everybody can come in and booze. Live Kangaroo, a ton of celebrities, and all that other shit. I just got my suit, by the way, yesterday.
A suit?
Yes. Remember the suit I wore in 2020?
No.
Yeah, the American flag one, top to bottom.
What is it, like from Shein or something?
Shinesty.
Shinesty.
I got it from Shinesty. So the new one just arrived. It's American. It's bald eagles all the way down the side, and then stars down the thing, and then obviously the Trump campaign sent me the shoes.
Bob, what are you gonna wear? Just a red suit with a big hammered sickle in the front of it?
I'm not a communist. I'm a homosexual, and
rainbows.
So rainbows, yeah.
Okay.
And a butt flap on the suit too, obviously, just for. For obvious
reasons. Yeah.
Wait, are people? So we're now 30 days away from Halloween. What do you think are going to be the big Halloween costumes this year? Because I'm thinking Diddy, just like a fucking shopping cart full of baby oil.
Sure.
Right.
So I can tell you what my kid wants, and it's Joker. The new movie's coming out.
God.
Well, the new movie's coming out in 3 days.
He can't watch that.
It's not that he can't watch it. So the commercials are on so much now for kids and on YouTube and everything else.
For that?
Oh.
That's a hard R rating.
No shit. And this will go back to my Facebook complaints and my fucking YouTube complaint and all those fucking assholes.
This is the only time
you're willing to show that.
Yeah, this is the only time.
You can't show our show.
The only time YouTube ever actually got regulated by the government was for advertising to kids.
Yes.
That's the only time they ever got hit.
And so I asked him, I go, because he's 10, and I go, why do you want to be the Joker? And he goes, well, Dad, the movie's coming out. And I go, you haven't seen the movie. You didn't see the first one. You didn't see any of them.
Yeah.
So how do you know? We put on, I think it was either Dude Perfect or Mr. Beast or whatever it is, and there's a commercial for it. Now, the commercial is clean, so there's no swearing in it, and they know what they're doing for kids, right?
This thing is going to be fucking savage.
No shit. And so, you can't stop it.
It isn't the whole, if you haven't seen the first one, it's been years, fuck you. No spoiler alerts. The whole, the first 90% of it is not violent. And then it's the last, 15 minutes?
Oh, it's ruthless.
This whole fucking movie is gonna be
Yeah. And so that's the issue that a lot of us parents are having with Facebook and YouTube and Google and Instagram and all that other shit is dude, you can keep your eye on kids for so long, even on YouTube Kids. So there's a separate app for YouTube Kids, and this even fucking gets me even more angrier. There's these adult men who are in their 60s who do toy reviews inside the store, and they go into Spirit, the Halloween Spirit stores.
What's it called?
Is it Spirits?
Not Spirit.
Yeah, Spirit Halloween.
Yeah, Spirit
Is that
Halloween.
what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they'll try on the costumes, but it's
These are grown men?
Grown, 60, 55-year-old men.
Those are pedophiles.
That's what I say. But those videos are allowed on YouTube Kids, so it's just God damn, man, is there anything out there? You want to censor our shit? My kids have never seen one fucking word of Drinkin' Bros. Ever, dude. Ever. Because I'm a good parent. This other shit, they're we're good with it as long as, we're fucking showing shit.
When did you start watching violent movies?
Me personally?
Yeah, but Violent Bob, when Ross grew up in the 1960s, violent movies were spaghetti westerns.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I guess Taxi Driver came out when you were a kid.
Boy, that's crazy, dude. Shawshank Redemption was when I was born, so I don't remember what year that was.
That was 93, and you were not born that year.
Yeah, and in all sincerity, like my parents, I couldn't watch like PG-13 until I was 13.
I mean, I watched like
until I was 17.
Predator and Rambo and shit like that.
As a 10-year-old,
for sure,
my parents were really strict on like titties and stuff like that, sex scenes.
Yeah,
but like aliens.
But what about
The Rock?
But what about psychological violence? Because I think Rambo mowing down a bunch of fucking Afghan dudes in Rambo 3 is quite a bit different than whatever the fuck is going to happen in Joe.
So Bob, to your point, E.T. Was fine, right? Because it was a friendly fucking finger.
But then Predator was fucking brutal, though.
Right. So
they were ripping fucking
I was
guts.
not allowed to watch.
I was allowed to watch that.
I was not allowed to.
10 years old. Your oldest is 10, right?
Yes.
That was about. And because my parents were just kind of like lazy, like fuck it, let's just fold the other one into the 8-year-old. My 8-year-old younger brother. We would be like watching Aliens or Predator or The Rock came out in '96. Or we would also watch like more benign, violent movies like Independence Day or something like that. But
when did the South Park movie come out?
That one I was not allowed to watch because
I think it was 99.
Yeah, so I watched that when I was 90s. That when I was 8.
I think it was 99.
Yeah, it was. So profanity and nudity or sex was a no, but pretty graphic violence was fine.
Which is weird for Catholics because they already know you're having sex at 8 years old.
But which is with a priest, obviously.
Right?
For me, no.
That was more of a hush-hush.
That's a sacrament. They don't want you fucking having heterosexual sex at 8 years old. That's fucking weird, man.
It was on the age, and that's when I could watch shit. And again, like if it was Alien, if it was E.T., sure. Alien, no. So I didn't see Alien. I didn't even see the fucking Alien movies. I think until I was in college, maybe.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't see Pulp Fiction until I was in my fucking 20s. Like, I just, because it had missed me. So, like, it was just too violent and all that other shit. And, like, did it change me? Who knows? Like, zero idea. But all I know is, like, I don't want my kids to be like, oh, yeah, fuck.
Well,
everything.
you know, it's funny. We grew up watching what would be considered violent movies, I suppose. I did, at least. And we ran around playing war. That was a thing. I don't know if you guys did that.
We did, yes. Yeah, for sure.
It was cowboys and Indians in war. Now kids... if you say the word gun in a school, you get kicked out of school or they call the cops on
Correct.
you, right?
Yep.
But they watch fucked up crazy shit all the time. Like really fucked up crazy shit.
Or the video games. Like, truthfully, the video games are probably more violent than the movies where you're like, God damn.
I guess maybe the
came out when I was,
illustration
like,
part
11.
is violent, but I was playing like Command and Conquer and shit like that where you're wiping out whole armies and murdering people and shit. I mean, you didn't see the murder happen, but I was thinking about murdering.
Well, you were, but the difference is now they're showing it in front of your face. So you're murdering people and then you feel great, right?
I don't know. I don't believe in blaming video games for fucking violence.
I don't either.
I was violent a long time before I started playing video games.
But what I'm saying is, if you know that it's out there, you have the choice as a parent to do it one way or the other, because you know what you're getting into, and it's on the box. To the video games credit, because I'm with you. I don't believe in blaming the video games. It literally says on the box, I think NC-17 for some of the video games or PG-13 and whatever. So, like, you know what you're getting into. It's not hidden anymore. It's not like cigarettes where they're, back in the day, it's a friendly camel. Smoke up, Johnny, you're going to be fine. They don't do that anymore. Everything is pretty fucking aggressive.
I think they should because America was a proper country when people smoked.
I agree, dude. I agree. But here we are. Here we are. Appreciate you tuning in, kids. Go to iTunes, rate the show a 5-star, and leave a quick review. Also, head on over to Spotify. It's just a 5-star, and you can walk away at that point. For D'Anthony Hollaway, I'm Ross Patterson. This is the Drinkin' Bros Pod.